This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you had a great weekend. Welcome to Monday's edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Lots to get to coming out of a very, very busy sports weekend. And looking forward to looking ahead to the final dozen games of the Winnipeg Jets season with the playoff hopes pretty much fully extinguished after that home ice loss to the Los Angeles Kings on Saturday night. The team was off yesterday. We're back at practice today, welcoming back Kyle Connor and Nate Schmidt. We're going to talk Jets with Scott Billeck coming up and Mike McIntyre as well as we get into the program. And of course, one of my favorite weeks of the year, it is Masters Week. We'll have plenty of Masters content over the course of the next 3 days before we tee it up at Augusta on Thursday. And today, our old pal, the Aussie, Dubsy, Mr. Dubsy, Dubs Anderson's going to join us. So we've got a packed show getting to it. Hey, before we bring Michael Remis in, a big thank you to the sponsors that make this show happen, including our newest sponsor, Wallace & Wallace. Great to have them on board, along with F Apparel, Vita Health, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend Country Club, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, Canadian Club, Coolbet Canada, and cannot wait this summer to get out to Aikens Lake a little later on. We'll tell you more about that in the days and weeks to come. Let's get things going and welcome in everybody in the chat, everyone listening on the podcast later on this afternoon, and welcoming in the star of the show, Michael Remis, the CTO. Remo, what's up? How was your weekend, dude?
Great weekend, Huss. I did enjoy Wrestlemania for two nights. Really took, watching Stone Cold Steve Austin. I didn't want to get to it right away, but you asked me how the weekend was. But I was just walking around the house laughing this morning to myself, thinking of Stone Cold giving 76-year-old Vince McMahon the stunner last night. And my wife was like, "Why are you laughing?" I'm like, "I'm just thinking about WrestleMania." So I'm in a good mood today. It did take my mind off the Jets loss, though, Saturday. When you said the Jets playoff hopes fully extinguished, we've kind of been watching the percentages on the sites, Money Puck, 538, The Athletic. We were clinging to 9-10% for a while. Yeah, I looked today and Money Puck has 1.1% playoff odds for the Jets and The Athletic has 1%. So it's going to be an interesting final few games how the Jets approach it here. But coming into the season, I think we did not see this as a possibility.
No. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be like this. Andrew Kopp wasn't supposed to be traded because the team was supposed to be a playoff team. We're going to need him for a playoff run. And I mean, as I've said on the show before, I think the realist in me has sort of come to grips and have been at peace with where the Jets are. And that's why, it wasn't, the losses to the Leafs and the Los Angeles Kings were, essentially just maybe a big time reality check because, the team had won 5 of 6. They had those 3 in a row. None of them were Picassos and they were somehow getting 2 points. And that's what it was all about at that time. But when you had that 2-0 lead against the Leafs and see that game just capsize on you. And then Saturday night's game, Remo, I know we've heard a lot of people talk about it. And I think it was quite clear to anybody that was at the game that, a very common story that we've heard numerous times so far this season about the Winnipeg Jets. Where was the urgency? Where was the sense of desperation? Where was the team that needed to be prepared to go up against a team that's in the playoffs right now and play for their lives like they were in a playoff game? And, unfortunately, that just did not happen. It was another very pedestrian first period by the Winnipeg Jets on Saturday night. For that matter, I did think they got better throughout the game. Certainly they put more pucks on net. They didn't have the, they closed the gap a little bit. But overall, it wasn't enough. And, I know Dave Lowry talked about it after the game. These are 60-minute batches, and the Jets are not good enough to play half a game, 2/3 of a game against quality competition and expect to win night in, night out. And, unfortunately, that is one of the calling cards of this hockey team that, makes you scratch your head. You wonder where it was, in some of these important games. But the bottom line, just another reason why we won't be talking about NHL playoff hockey at Canada Life Arena coming up this spring.
Yeah, and I think, you go back, I think the moment where it really seemed like, okay, this isn't a playoff team, goes back for me was that Monday in February after, you had the weekend overtime loss. You beat Minnesota. You had the weekend overtime loss to Dallas, which at the time seemed, was for the second one or the first one. And then you had the win against Nashville. And you're like, okay, let's go on a run here. And you're playing Chicago. And then they kind of laid the egg against Chicago. And we've been kind of holding on 10% because to be fair, it's more fun talking about, what's possible than, we'll have plenty of time to talk about, the failed season. During the off season and throughout the playoffs. But yeah, Saturday's game was just a game that we've seen before where, they get off to a poor start, they get behind, and then, the switch flips and, they try to make a great comeback. They had a lot of quality chances. Cal Peterson was really good, and they fall just short. And I think we've seen that script of a game from them many times. And it was definitely, I guess if you were at the game, maybe you were entertained by all the chances, but end result was you did not win. The Jets went 0 for 6 on the power play, although one of the goals was like right after time expired. And it was from the second power play unit, which is getting like no ice time anyways. So, again, it seemed like a story that we've seen before from them and just another notch on the disappointing season.
I'll say this about the power play. It did look different with Nikolai Ehlers being in that group. And again, it wasn't any more successful as far as actually scoring. But I will say this, Remo, I think that, to me, coming out of that game and, spending a couple beers afterwards before getting into the squared circle and just thinking about, looking ahead to these final dozen games and into the offseason, to me, maybe the number one thing outside of what core piece changes, assuming that the Winnipeg Jets decide to do something like that, and I think we know my position on it, how do they find a spot for Nikolai Ehlers to get the most out of Nikolai Ehlers? And I'll speak to both the power play and, where he fits in the lines. And I know they've been going back to Scheifele and Ehlers, and at times that's looked okay. At times it's looked just not clicking on the same page. And Dave Lowry switched it up to the point where Nikolai Ehlers at a number of times, has been playing with Adam Lowry on what is the quote unquote third line. Regardless of what happens in these final 12 games going into next season, I think the Winnipeg Jets have to find a way, much like they did a very good job this year of getting the most out of Kyle Connor, with Nikolai Ehlers, because he is too good and too important and too much of a difference maker for the Winnipeg Jets, to be playing, in the teens every night while you do have other players that, are being relied on, for 20, 22, 23 minutes. And I think we've seen what a difference Ehlers has made to the lineup since he got back into it after missing a quarter of the season. And certainly when you're doing an autopsy of this year, the lack of 27 in the lineup for that period of time was certainly, a big part of why, the Winnipeg Jets came up with a few less wins. But to me, with where he is right now in his career, such a difference maker, whoever is pushing the buttons behind the bench next year, I think that needs to be right at the top of the list of things to do. Get the most out of Nikolai Ehlers, find him a home on a line in that top six, and play him accordingly.
Yeah, I think, isn't that what we were saying in the off season, leading into this season? And I think the team, they've kind of been stuck at a bit of an, I don't want to say identity crisis, but it's kind of clear that, Connor, Dubois were the number one line and they weren't getting played like that. Now, Kyle Connor is, but Dubois, he's playing like he's the number one center, but he hasn't been getting the ice time like he's the number one center. And I think you could agree. Nikolai Ehlers as well should be elevated with the ice time. So they're I think the biggest change, easy to make, is giving Dubois, Connor, making them the one line. Do you play Ehlers with them? Do you load it up? I
I've got a lot of time for that. I mean, when we saw them earlier, I mean, and I think, we talked about this on the show, once that line came together and had a couple real strong units, I mean, it was hard not to think, okay, this is the future of the Winnipeg Jets. When this team drops the puck next season, this is going to be that line. I'll say this, and again, who knows how long, this continues. But Wheeler's looked awesome on that line. I don't know of anyone that can, kind of point to Blake Wheeler and his play since splitting up with Scheifele and playing with Dubois and Connor that he hasn't looked good in that spot. But as far as getting the most out of Nikolai Ehlers and giving yourself the best chance to win, I mean, I think there is an argument to have, the Connor and Ehlers split between those top two lines. Problem is right now that the Scheifele line, has had their warts and issues, and it's been a revolving door a little bit, especially since Wheeler moved off of his line and then Ehlers was taken off. So that spot, the second center position, if Mark Scheifele's not part of the mix, obviously a massive piece of business for them to figure out. But I do think that whatever moves that they make, whatever things that they're doing, you've got Dubois and Connor as an incredible linchpin of a top line. Do you put Nikolai Ehlers in that group and, load up on that top line? And if you do, who's running in that second unit, and also what that does to the third line? I mean, I think these are going to be topics, maybe more so for the offseason than right now. But I think so much of what we're talking about, Remis, over the next month as the team finishes out this stretch in their final 12 games is not going to be about, whether they finish with 85 or 87 points in the standings. It's going to be about what does this mean for the offseason and the huge decisions that the general manager has to make.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I guess day one of that does start today. The team did return to practice after Saturday's game. They had an off day Sunday. We did have some positive news going in, next game being Wednesday against Detroit for Connor Hellebuck bobblehead. I think that'll be exciting. But here are the lines for today, Huss. We did have Connor with Dubois and Wheeler, and I agree, Wheeler has looked strong, and that goal where he just turnstile with Mark Giordano is maybe one of the goals of the year. And then we have Stastny with Scheifele and Ehlers, Sanford, Lowry, Appleton, Barron, Tony Nato, Svechnikov, and Morgan Barron's come in and looked pretty good. Coming in on Thursday in the Leafs game, and there's Morrissey, DeMello, Dylan Pionk, Heinola, Schmidt. Although Mike and Ken had Heinola as the third pair. Marat had Stanley in there as the third pair. Stanley and Brooks, Mike and Ken had as the extras. Dave Lowry wouldn't really commit to who's going to be there, so that's something to watch for Wednesday. But I mean, as far as Ville Heinola goes, I thought there was times on that power play, the very short power play time he had on Saturday, looked very strong. He assisted on the goal, put the puck on net. Adam Lowry in front, in position, banging, and that's how many goals like that are scored against the Jets. Nice to see the Jets getting one of those greasy goals, but you see Heinola's offensive instincts, and he's been pretty strong. And I mean, when he's been in the lineup, he's put up points. I think 4 of his last 5 he's got. Let me just double check that, but I think he looked pretty good on Saturday.
Oh, you know what? Ville was great on Saturday. I mean, that was another big step forward for him, and I absolutely concur with you on the power play. I mean, listen, I don't know how much it matters when the top unit's spending, 145 or 150 on the ice of everyone. And maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I think we know, especially without Connor, that Dave Lowry was going to ride that number one unit. But good teams, you need to have a couple power play units. Well, first of all, you need to have one that's really functioning, but ideally you're going to have a couple. And listen, it's been enough of a struggle just to get the number one unit clicking, which it has done quite well at times this season. Other times it looks somewhat stale and need to be freshened up a little bit. But I really do think that you do need to have, more contributions from that second power play unit. Now, I just finished saying that I think it's important to get Nikolai Ehlers more power play time and more opportunity in playing on a line like that. So maybe I'm trying to have it both ways. But I'll say this about Ville Heinola. These are some of the things that he's done so well at the American Hockey League level. And you know what? If you're moving him from the AHL to the National Hockey League, it would be good to give him more opportunities to do some of the things that he does well. And certainly contribute on the power play is one of those things. And, for a smaller guy, I mean, he's shrewd. He's got good movement to find lanes, and he can get pucks through. And I thought that goal that Adam Lowry scored, albeit after time had expired on the power play, was a perfect example of that, Remis. And you just nailed it. You see these teams score these goals against the Winnipeg Jets like that all the time. It's something that Dave Lowry has constantly been harping about, going to the net, being there, being hard on the puck. And that was a great example of it. And if they've been able to do that a little bit more and more consistently, I think we've seen maybe a few more notches in the win column right now. But I'll be fascinated to see how Ville Heinola is used over the course of this past month, because as I mentioned, we're basically in next year territory right now, and he is a big part of next year. I think most people would agree.
Yeah, I would hope so. The way that, his entry level deal, the offensive upside, 5 points in his last 6 games, Huss. And I agree with you. You look at the Kings, they got a lot of shots on net, and maybe the team would say some of them are from the outside, not exactly threatening shots, but you put pucks on net, they can go in. So they put a puck on net, bounces off Hellebuck, bounces off Morrissey, and that's the go-ahead goal. And they put pucks on, and they have guys in front, and that's kind of how teams have been scoring goals on the Jets. I saw a tweet on the weekend, Huss. I don't know if you saw this. Jay Fresh puts out all the fantasy stats on Twitter. 5 versus 5 expected goals against per 60. So, and if expected goals is basically measuring, how many, if you have a shot that's closer to the net, it's a higher chance of going in. So, and we know the Jets are poor at giving up slot shots. Here's the chart. Well, there they are at the bottom, with the Flyers.
Oh,
Coyotes,
God, that's not a good neighborhood to be in.
Coyotes, Habs, Blue Jackets, Red Wings. I'm actually surprised the Blues are this low.
Yeah, me too.
Because this does not account for goaltending. This is basically like who's giving up the worst quality shots.
Yeah,
at the bottom. So, yeah, then you have the Sens. This is not an area the Jets want to be in. That's something that's going to have to get cleaned up if you want to go anywhere. And then you can talk about needing a depth forward, but if you're giving up 3 goals a game, like, you're not going to have success. And you see where the Jets are there. They're in an area with a lot of the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, they're 28th of the 32. And I mean, if you just take the bottom 25% of that list, Jersey out, Ottawa out, St. Louis in, and then Detroit, Winnipeg, Philly, Arizona, Montreal, and Columbus, basically a who's who of the worst teams in the league in the basement in most divisions around. So, it's pretty simple right now. I mean, there's a lot of things that are simple, but you need to be better in your own end. The team needs to defend better, and maybe you'll get some better results. But I'm sure Connor Hellebuck looks at that number and goes, "Yeah, no kidding. I know what you mean. I'm feeling that all the time."
And well, that's why we say, like, he's actually for the most part like pretty. Some games, I know his goals against is like 3, but he has these games where he's the reason why they're even competitive, and they're still losing. So,
as Kenny's water bottle just said, that's how good Helly has been. He stops way more than he has any business stopping.
yeah, I agree too. So, again, I think that's a problem that's going to have to look at next year. I know you look at Calgary as an example. They bring in Daryl Sutter, and it's a completely we make a couple changes. Giordano that was out, Coleman in. They did get to Foley at the before the deadline, but Calgary, I mean, they're favorites now in the to make the conference final for sure. And it's amazing to me how how far Calgary has come since last year.
Well, exactly, and that'll be something that for folks that want more of the status quo or very slight changes, will say, "Hey, look at Calgary. They were one of the most disappointing teams in the league last season, and Daryl Sutter came in and understood what the team needed in the second half of the year after he took over." They didn't make huge changes. I mean, they lost their captain, Mark Giordano, one of the the biggest hits when it came to the expansion draft. They signed Blake Coleman. They ran it back, and now they're one of the top favorites for the Stanley Cup. So, although I will say this, I think the appetite for that to happen in Winnipeg probably not quite what it would be in some other in some other locales in and around the league. Schickster was asking if the Jets have their own first round pick next year. Yes, they do. They've got their own first rounder. They don't have their second rounder, but they do have the Blues second rounder and they've got the Rangers second rounder. And I believe one of them, and essentially the Jets have the option of taking St. Louis's second rounder or the Rangers second rounder next year. So we'll find out about that. But yes, we'll be talking draft at some point. But right now, there is still some games to get to. And Scott Billeck's going to join us as well as Mike McIntyre. We'll get their thoughts on the weekend and basically a look ahead to this final section of games for the Winnipeg Jets. What we'll be looking for and what moves would be in the best interest of the organization with a dozen left to play. Remo, one other hockey story on the weekend that we should get to was this business between the Coyotes and the Anaheim Ducks. Major code alert in a battle of bottom-dwelling Pacific Division teams.
Yeah, well, first of all, didn't it start Trevor Zegras doing the, was that a Michigan goal, lacrosse-style goal around Troy Terry? I mean, beautiful goal.
It was. Well, first of all, he shot between the legs from a sharp angle. It got saved. The puck came behind the net as he went around the net, and that's exactly what he did. He picked the thing up lacrosse-style and took it around Sonny Milano, who was standing in front of the net, who basically just had to go on the sideways and popped it in at 5-0. Now, that was earlier in the game. With 5 minutes left, the Ducks were, still pressuring. There was a puck that Zegras maintains was loose. He took a shot at it. Goalie covered it up. Ducks didn't like it, or the Coyotes didn't like it. And Jay Beagle goes and gives him a pretty solid cross check in the back. Not anything that was completely over the line. You see that all the time. Now, with it being their young rookie star player, obviously the other guys on the Ducks didn't particularly like that. A couple guys gave a shove, and Troy Terry, line mate of Zegras, 32 goals on the season, gave Beagle a shove or like an aggressive move, saying, "Hey, don't do that." And Beagle decides to take his gloves off and beat the living hell out of Troy Terry, who never even got his gloves off. If you saw the pictures afterwards, it was pretty ugly. Massive swelling around his eye and cut, eyeball bloodshot. And, after the game, Trevor Zegras had some really strong words, as did Dallas Aikens. But what I think the words, and this is what we should play, Remis, that was the most, I think, controversial that got people going, was Tyson Nash, the Coyotes broadcaster, who seemed to imply that this was retaliation for the skilling it up and, quote, embarrassing players. You want to play that for folks?
Yeah, here it is.
And now Fowler, everything's going to happen here, and Jay Beagle grabs a hold of somebody.
Oh, you knew that was going to start something, and I love it.
Yeah,
Beagle's pounding somebody.
Troy Terry. Yeah, Beagle caught him up high. Oh, man.
And Beagle's going to fight someone else here. And Terry's hurt.
Jay Beagle caught Troy Terry with a couple.
And that's the problem sometimes with these young players. You want to embarrass guys, and you want to skill it up. You better be prepared to get punched in the mouth.
Beagle wants to go with Fowler. I think Fowler wants to go with him.
I'd love to see him let him go.
Boy, I haven't seen Jay Beagle like that all season. He's fired up.
I love it. Good for Jay Beagle. He's a veteran player that's been around a long time, and he's watching these young kids dance around these fancy moves.
First time. Listen, it's embarrassing commentary by Tyson Nash. I get it that there are some people that, for whatever reason, have issues with talented, skilled young players doing things that we haven't seen done before. But Remis, I don't know where you're at on this. I mean, I thought it was Bush League that, Troy Terry got the crap beaten out of him. I mean, a guy that's never had a fight, 32-goal scorer by a plug like Jay Beagle. And listen, I understand that, there's some stuff going on. They weren't feeling too good about that. I'm certainly not saying they should have just stood back and done nothing. But that was way extreme. And then for a National Hockey League broadcast to throw out that, hey, if these young kids want to come out and skill it up, you need to be prepared to get punched in the face, is embarrassing for the sport, to be honest with you, from where I'm sitting. Oh. Don't score goals that are too nice. You're going to end up like this guy.
Yeah, there's the picture of Troy Terry. And yeah, I mean, I can't believe that you'd say, okay, if you're going to try to score nice goals and win games, you're going to get beat up. I don't know if that really flies in 2022. What, they're mad that he like poked the goalie, so you punch a guy's face in who didn't even drop the gloves.
The rest of the world is mad that the Coyotes are filled with plugs like Jay Beagle and are the embarrassment to the National Hockey League and will continue to be for the next number of years as they play in a glorified junior hockey arena out there with a team that will be probably consistently challenging for last place in the league and the first overall draft pick.
Yeah, here, I'll take it off the screen. Sorry to everyone in chat, but I mean, pretty gruesome. I don't think there's a place for that. I mean, he's not even fighting. Yeah, Jay Beagle, I'm going to fourth liner. I'm going to tee off on, a 30-goal scorer. Seems dumb to me. And I mean, but what do I know? I never played the game at a pro level, so it's possible.
You have no
I don't
opinion.
know.
You're not, not entitled to any sort of opinion. You can't watch that and think anything of it. You just give them your money and take it. And that's just, you didn't play the game. You've got no say in this. Give me a break. And I think we've seen a lot of bad takes from my perspective on this. I mean, for some reason, people want to play, play their Don Cherry card or something right now, seeing this is the wussification of hockey. Like that used to happen all the time. Well, guess what? The game's improved. The game's far better than it's ever been before, unless the only reason you went to a hockey game was to see guys punch each other in the face. So listen, there's some lessons to be learned. I'm not saying that this is, the Ducks and those young players are completely, without any fault in this. I mean, I think Zegras being as aggressive as he was on the puck, up 5-0 in the third period. There's probably a time and place, and it might have been maybe a little smarter to take it easier on that. But you know what? I mean, I respect teams that play till the whistle and play till the end of 60 minutes. We just talked about a certain team that could probably use a bit more of that as well. So I'm not going to sit here and say you can't try to score goals in the third period when you've already had a strong game. But to me, I mean, I think the overreaction and the connection to it, the thing that I felt so bad, if we're just talking about a guy, I've got that in the ears, Remo. If we're just talking about a guy that, took a shot at the goalie and the team didn't like it very much, okay. I mean, certainly I think every team would do that, not to the extent that happened, but the connection of it, that this was some sort of overdue penance because the Ducks scored some really nice goals and embarrassed the Coyotes earlier, is an absolute joke. As last time I checked, the object of the game was to score more goals than your opponent. So if you find another way of scoring a goal that goes up onto the scoreboard, that to me is a good thing. And, no one should get punched in the face because the goal they scored was too nice.
Yes, very well said. It reminds me of baseball where like some young Ronald Acuna or Bryce Harper will stare at their home run for a second too long, and then Brian McCann, old school catcher, comes out and starts a fight. It's so dumb. I think so. We're not here to see Jay Beagle. If two guys want to fight for a legitimate reason, but I determine if this is a legitimate reason or not. And this, because a guy scored too nice a goal, I don't think you get to punch him in the face. Well, he doesn't fight back. Pretty
well. And again, I don't have the full code in front of me. I mean, I'm ordering a new copy of it so we can reference the code handbook a little bit better. But I'm pretty sure beating the crap out of a 32 goal scorer that's never been in a fight, that was just sort of there, is not quite what the authors of the code originally intended. So. Anyways, thoughts on that? We'll see what Billeck has to say on that. We'll get Remis back in here in a little bit later on. Mike McIntyre is going to join us a little later as well. And we will get ready for the Masters with Mr. Dubsy before the end of the program. Big welcome again to our friends at Wallace & Wallace who joined us on board the beginning of the month. It is great to have Wallace & Wallace with us. They are Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialist. You've seen their fences and trucks all over the city. They've been serving residential and commercial customers here in Winnipeg and leading the way since 1946. Bottom line is, if your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's done a number on your old one, give them a call. Vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain line, or wood, they've got the right fence for you. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they also have Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. Hit them up at Wallace & Wallace, 452-2700. An incredible group of experts are there, including Ben, Charles, and Mark, to arrange a time to come on and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lowson Road off Kenniston. Once again, a big welcome to Wallace & Wallace being part of the Winnipeg Sports Talk team. Our friends at F Apparel are ready for the summer. Weddings, grads are ready to go. And listen, every guy needs at least one suit that fits and looks great. And F has a full line of custom clothing for any occasion, including suits, dress shirts, chinos, golf pants, untucked dress shirts, shoes, ties, accessories, and more. They are the top choice in Winnipeg for wedding and grad suits. If you have a big event coming up and you need to look great, F is here for you. Ask them about their option for your wedding party, 15% off when the group buys their suits from F Apparel, and a great promotion for young Winnipeg high school graduates as well. F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown, and online at fepapparel.com. And of course, our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market continue to be the leaders. Always stock with Winnipeg's best selection of local, organic, and natural groceries, supplements, and beauty products, all at great prices with knowledgeable staff trained on these products to help you out. And don't forget all the great, quick, easy, and healthy options at the grab-and-go Vita Health Deli, including Vita Health soups, sandwiches, wraps, and more. Great local company that's been in business since 1936, 85 years of empowering people to lead their healthy lives. 7 Winnipeg locations now, including the newest store in Linden Ridge. And check out their new fully shoppable website at myvita.ca. All right, let's get to it. Scott Billeck joins us now. Billeck, what's up? How was the weekend?
Better than last weekend when I was extremely sick. So I'll take a healthy weekend over an unhealthy weekend any day.
Yeah, did you get off the list as well, like the rest of us?
I didn't have COVID. I just about said I wish I had COVID. I thought so. I mean, I've seen like Omicron, and a lot of people have just said, it hasn't been that bad or whatever. So whatever I had, it was horrible. I was out for like 3 days. And yeah, I don't know if it's just like, I haven't been sick in like 2.5 years, right? I mean, that's kind of, I imagine for a lot of people, I haven't really been sick that much in the last bit. So I wonder if my immune system needed to go on overdrive or whatever to kind of deal with it. But yeah, it was rough. But I don't think it was COVID. I tested negative several times. But
good.
Yeah.
Well, you're looking like $1 million US tax free. Great to have you back in the back in the saddle and back on the program. I want to talk about the next month or whatever for the Winnipeg Jets with you. But before we do that, I mean, thoughts on what we saw on Saturday from the Jets. Another pedestrian first period. I thought they got better as the game went on, but against good teams, sometimes that's not good enough. You can't count on just playing a couple periods. More of the same from you. Yeah,
I mean that's the thing, right? You play a pretty good first. And then it kind of goes, you play a pretty good last half of the game. I shouldn't say first. I'm thinking back to the Toronto game now. But you finish the last half of the game good. You find that urgency, when you need it later on in the game, but it's just not there from the start. I mean, whether they shot like 19-6 or something like that in the first period. And like, I get it. I mean, after the game, Adam Lowry and Dave Lowry both said, well, we kept the shots to the perimeter and all that. My biggest issue with that is you had all these shots on goal, so where were you playing most of that period? And the obvious answer is in the defensive zone. And at the end of the day, none of it really matters unless if you can pull out a win like you did in Buffalo or whatever, right? I mean, you don't have to always play perfect to get the 2 points, but this Jets team just sewers itself sometimes by not, just playing for at least, I mean, even 40 minutes would be an upgrade at this point. But they just can't seem to do it, and so it kind of puts them on the back foot often, and you get what you got on Saturday or even in Toronto, right? Where the Toronto game you started out good, but then you just ran out of gas and you couldn't, get it done. And the problem is like, we get it. It's back-to-backs and you played 5-8 and 7-12 and all these numbers that they throw out at us. But this is the hole you're in, right? I mean, you have to be winning these games. And now the Jets are in this position where it's likely that they have to pretty much run the table. I mean, I know Dallas lost, but they also won in the meantime too. They won on the night that the Jets lost. And so the Jets are 5 points back, and, that's the way it is. But these gaps with 12 games to go, it's difficult to get back into this. And you really, Dallas has a favorable schedule coming up. The Jets have this gauntlet of hell coming up on this road trip, not this next one, but the one where they go through both Florida teams, or Rangers and Carolina. So it's just, it doesn't look probable at this point. And, it's things like Saturday. It's Saturday's games. It's games like the Buffalo one they lost that made Maurice quit and all that stuff, right? There's so many. I did a story on, I want to say it was over the weekend now, just like looking at games where the Jets dropped points and where they could have been if they would just found ways to not play so poorly at times, and games that were easy wins that should have been, wins where you lose 1-0 to Arizona, but you put 46 shots on goal. I mean, those are games you got to win, and I get it. The other team gets paid to play, and they all say it, and they got skill and all that stuff. But if you want to be a playoff team, you got to beat ththese teams. The Jets haven't, and it's not looking very good for them.
No, very clear that there's a lot of things missing from this club right now, and that'll be, it'll all be discussed when we do like a full autopsy of this season and look into the rest. And listen, you know me, I'm as optimistic of a guy as you'll find. I was more than here to keep the light on for the playoffs at 10%, 11% to see what's going on. After these last couple games, I have turn the lights out, and we're thinking about next year. It's a 1%. I mean, prove me wrong. I'd love to sit here and eat crow, and we could play this over and over again as a freezing cold take. Remember when Huss said it was done? But listen, I don't think we're going to get to that point, which brings us to these final 12 games. And yes, I know they're not mathematically eliminated, and I'm not sure when that will actually happen. And just because of the way things work with points, I mean, it'll probably be a couple weeks until that officially happens.
Likely that road trip, right? So,
well, exactly. Kind of So here's my question for you, Scott, and we're going to kind of kick this around this afternoon. What are we looking for in these final 12 games? And and the situation for Dave Lowry, I think, is really interesting. I mean, if you're Dave Lowry, you come in the situation that he was in. I mean, I think the opportunity was there. If you can get this thing turned around, if you can get this team playing the way people know that they're capable of, and you make the playoffs and have a good run, I think it's very likely you're probably able to maybe slide into that job and take the interim tag off. I mean, with where the season is right now, no matter how it ends, I don't know how the organization, which absolutely needs to sell this team and the future to the fan base after a real disappointing season, can roll back with Dave Lowry. But bottom line is, he's still got this job for the next 12 games. I mean, first of all, put yourself in Dave Lowry's shoes right now. I mean, what are you trying to do, and what is the goal to come out of these last 12 games, both from yourself and the organization? Because I think they might be different.
Maybe trying to get Mark Scheifele on your side. I don't know. That might be a start, but I don't know if that's going to work either. But, I don't know. It's almost like he's in a losing battle that he knows he probably can't win. Apart from going 12-0 here, which might save his job, but I don't know. There's a lot of coaches on the market this summer, and the Jets, I assume, are going to be looking to change how this team is run, who is behind the bench, that sort of thing. Because, the one part of the autopsy of this team is going to be, what do they need to do to kind of, I suppose, change the culture in that room. An actual new voice that's not a recycled, assistant coach, or even Pascal Vincent. A great guy, Pascal, but don't think he's the right guy to come in here. But to answer your question, I mean, to the last little bit of this season here, I mean, it's, I don't know. What do you show? I mean, let's say you go 11-1, but you miss out on the playoffs by a point or whatever. I mean, that's still a failure, right? I mean, you get this great, run and feel good and whatever, but I don't know. We haven't seen that. This is a team that struggles to win 3 games in a row. Never mind, having to put together 12, or maybe, let's say if they could give a loss in Dallas, what are like 6-5, they're 6-4. and that sort of thing. I mean, it just doesn't seem possible. And so what you need, if you're Dave Lowry, is to show that you have control of this team and that you can get them to, buy into your systems and all that stuff. But I don't really think that's been the case, because part of this team, part of what he does is, get guys to the net and that, but that's so iffy on nights, and get consistency out of guys, play more than one period like we talked about. And that hasn't happened yet, right? So is it the players that just, are indifferent at this point? Is there a long, I mean, I wonder, I can't, I shouldn't say I can't wait, but, I'm very curious at garbage day interviews, how much the Paul Maurice walking out on this team really affected, some of the guys in this on the roster, because I think it did. I've heard it had. I've heard there's a lot of guys that were, or a few guys that were affected by how the Olympic thing played out and that sort of thing. But at the same time, I mean, there's guys all over the league that have dealt with coaching changes. I mean, just look at Edmonton or whatever, Vancouver even, who have played better under Bruce Boudreau. I don't think the Jets have really played all that better. I mean, aside from maybe their penalty kill getting a bit better. But under Paul Maurice, they were scoring more. They were getting more shots on net. It was better under Paul Maurice, which is, everybody, it's funny, right? You look at some of the analytics, and they were better under Paul Maurice than they have been under Dave Lowry, and everybody wanted Paul Maurice gone, and now you got Dave Lowry here, and it hasn't been any better. I like Dave. He's a nice guy, and I know he's trying to do a certain thing, but it just doesn't seem like there's enough buy-in right now on it. And this would have had to happen way back when Paul quit. And you got a little bit of it there, and they've gone on like a 4-1-1 run, and they've won whatever it was, 9 of their last 12 or whatever. But it's just it hasn't been consistent enough, and that's the biggest problem it seems with coaches now in this city, is they can't seem to get a consistent effort out of these guys. So if that's what Dave Lowry can do and try and sell that for himself, maybe, but I just don't see it. I don't see Dave Lowry coming back next year. I think this team needs to go for a coach that knows how to win. And I don't mean that Dave Lowry doesn't know how to win, but I'm just saying a guy with a proven track record, I suppose. It's going to cost you more as a team, but this is the price of winning or being a contender or even just being a playoff team. You need a coach in here that can look at this team differently than the ones in the past have now at this point.
And you know what? I mean, listen, and I said this coming out of, when Maurice walked, into Dave Lowry. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind that I would like to see from this club that I didn't think was consistently there from the top of the bottom to the lineup was accountability. And listen, I agree. It's a lot easier to make an example out of a guy on the third or the fourth line, or a young player like Evgeny Svechnikov when he does something dumb, and sit him down for a while, than it is for the guys that, really are your playmakers that are going to win or lose you the games. Yeah. But you talk about buy-in. I mean, we've talked a lot about the core. I'm not sure there's many people that would stand here with us and say they think that Mark Scheifele's bought into what Dave Lowry's been preaching. And I do wonder, what that does to the other guys in the room when they see that, and, obviously still see him going out there as much as he has been, despite some of the results, both good in the offensive zone and ugly elsewhere. And listen, I mean, I brought this up months ago. We talked about it, as options for the teams going forward. And I do think that, the Jets could probably significantly change the culture in their room, the core, the way things look up front, if they did make a move of Mark Scheifele. But to be honest with you, Scott, I mean, I left the game and was talking with some people after the game on Saturday night. Like, that's sort of always been my perspective, is what's best for the Winnipeg Jets. I'm not sure there's many players in the NHL that could probably use a change of scenery in a different situation right now than Mark himself, considering the trajectory of his career over the last little while.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think weird that we're sitting here talking about this, right? Because this was your franchise number one center. This was the guy that was supposed to lead you to a Stanley Cup. And, if you even go back 4 years to the 2017-18 playoff run, I know we reference that so much, but that's the high point of the 11 years this team has been here, right? So,
and he was driving the bus. He had 14 goals in 17 games. I mean, he was the guy, along with some other very talented players on the team. But I mean, there was no doubt about it at that point. He was the one that was taken a lot on his shoulders, stepping up and making things happen.
Exactly. And so that's where did that go wrong, right? And that's somebody in the organization knows, Mark obviously knows, but where has that gone wrong? What happened? I don't know if you can mend that fence. I don't know. This is the thing, like, you don't often see these fences mended when it comes to NHL players, because they just, they'd rather move on to a new spot. Problem is, you're going to lose a point per game player. And what are you going to get in return? Are you getting that in return? It's a very difficult deal to make. And the other problem is, too, what is Mark Scheifele's trade value right now? I'm unsure if it's that high. Obviously, there's a baseline for the type of player that he is. Don't get me wrong. But here's a guy that, across the league, I can't imagine there's people in the NHL right now that haven't seen what Mark Scheifele's been doing here in Winnipeg. The criticism, the lack of defensive play, all that. So even the lack of just engagement overall, and be like, oh, okay. But there's going to be, GMs out there that are like, hey, I can fix that. We have the spot for him. We're going to let him do what he wants to do, that sort of thing, I'm sure. But, the trade value has to be there too. And that's the other problem. Does it change? What does it do for the room? That's a great question, because, I've seen Pierre-Luc Dubois this season, and if we saw that same type of, fury in his game as we in Mark Scheifele's game as we do in Dubois' game, this team would be unbelievably good, I think, right? And that's where there seems to be a disconnect in my mind of there's certain players that really want to push. There's certain players that really want to go and do a good job. I think Kyle Connor has been a part of that. I think Pierre-Luc Dubois has. I even think Blake Wheeler has been at times too. I agree. I don't think that Blake Wheeler has had issues the same way that Mark Scheifele has. I think Blake Wheeler has dealt with some issues this season that hampered him, but he still tries out there, and he can still be a very effective player at times, even though Father Time is catching up to him or has caught up to him. But Mark seems to be on his own island, and that's part of the issue, right? Because who is telling Mark Scheifele? Who is keeping him accountable? And have they tried? I am assuming Dave Lowry has tried, but what other than sitting the guy is really going to be trying, right? Paul Maurice sat Mark Scheifele in Toronto. We'll remember that game, right? A hockey night in Canada, I believe it was a Saturday night, in front of his family, and he sat him. Like that was the message sent on that night. But Dave Lowry hasn't done that. And, we've asked Dave Lowry about it before. I asked him a couple of days ago about Mark Scheifele and that back check on that shorthanded goal against from the Kings. And, he didn't really talk about it. And, I get it. Like, coaches aren't, for Dave Lowry, it's about self-preservation. You don't want to be the guy that's sewering your own players and all that sort of thing. But, yeah, it's interesting. And I think Mark is going to likely be the guy that they probably have to change in this organization, new coach, whatever, all that stuff. But it seems that right now that it's been quite an issue with Mark, and and if it's bringing some other guys down, or if it's causing division or strife in the room that we don't see right now because we're not in the room, and even then you don't always see it. I don't know, but it is a problem, and everybody sees it, and that's where we're at right now with Mark Scheifele.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate because this is the guy. This was the franchise. This was the face of your franchise when they came back, right?
They were taking RFAs on the statue that Maurice was going to build for him outside the rink. Remember? Right. Yeah. Look at how things have changed.
I know, but we said this about Patrick Laine too, right? sometimes this is the game, right? This is the business, and sometimes it just doesn't go well. And at the end of the day, it's a very tough decision, I think, for Kevin Cheveldayoff to deal with whatever he's going to do with Mark Scheifele, because this is the first draft pick that he had. This is basically their draft and develop kind of. You can look at Josh Morrissey and some other guys, but if you're looking at draft and develop, and they sent Mark Scheifele back a couple of years, and they made him, they developed him in junior, and then he came up and all that stuff. This is your guy. This is the poster child of this franchise and your whole thing. But what's the other question here? Is Kevin Cheveldayoff going to be back next season? I think that's something that needs to be talked about too, because he's 11 years and would be going into his 12th year of his reign here. And what do you have to show for it? I mean, really nothing, right? You've got some good players, don't get me wrong. And you've built, a decent stable of prospects. It's being rebuilt. He's made some trades, got back, maybe back into the first round this year as well. But at the same time, I mean, this is a business about winning, and I understand there's loyalty and all those types of things. But at the end of the day, at what point do you have to cut loose on a lot of, what's going on right now and try and steer this franchise in a different direction? Because they haven't gotten back to the two glory years, if you want to call them, 2017 and 2018, and then the next year, at least the first half of it. That's nowhere to be found right now. And I don't know where they're going to get back to that place with what they have right now, with the coaches, possibly even with the GM. How are they going to get back to that? How do they turn themselves back into a contender when they're on the front page of the hockey news and all that stuff? Like, when is that coming? And it just it's not there right now.
Yeah, and it seems like we're farther away than we've been for a while around here from that. Scott, great stuff as always. What do you got coming up in the sun this week?
Well, I'm off today, but yeah, we'll be back at it tomorrow, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, the Jets win in Detroit. I mean, I guess, and who knows what happens. That's the thing, right? This whole thing could be interesting again, because we've seen it. The Jets have gotten close and dropped back and gotten close and that. So, that's kind of what we're looking at here. But part of it's too turning into the, let's start writing the eulogy, right? Too.
Yeah, the egg timer of the season doesn't have a lot of salt up at the top of it. But hey, thanks so much for doing this. Let's catch up again soon.
Yeah, anytime, Huss. Appreciate it. Thank you.
There it is, Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. We'll continue the convo on the Winnipeg Jets with our good friend Mike McIntyre in just a second. Hey, a big shout out to our friends over at Culligan Water, Winnipeg's leaders in water and water services for over 65 years, family owned in business right here in Winnipeg, serving Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. They have it all: water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, and city-wide water delivery services for both the home and the cottage coming up this summer. And if your business has water needs, they'll take care of you at Culligan as well. Full commercial and industrial water products and solutions available. Whatever your water needs are, call our friends at Culligan, 694-5180. You can visit them over at 1200 Sargent or check them out online at drinkculligan.com. And yes, spring is finally here. Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are slowing down with the automotive battery run that was so prevalent throughout our brutal winter. And now it's time to get ready for spring. Whether it's spring cleaning or summer fun, Manitoba Battery has got you covered on the battery front for whatever you need, whether it's the drill, the tractor, for the farming friends out there, whether it's the batteries you need to help to get you the job done for the lawnmower this year. Manitoba Battery's got it. And then once we get to summer, whether it's a hot rod, a golf cart, a boat, whatever the summer needs for you, Donnie and the gang have you covered as well. They'll deliver anywhere in the city with same-day delivery when you order by 1:30 at a much lower price than what you'd have to pay at one of the big box stores. Manitoba Battery, home of the best prices in Winnipeg, 1026 Logan Avenue, and online at manitobabattery.com. And yet, popped into Royal Sports on the weekend. Man, it's exciting with the change of seasons. Soccer players, baseball players, softball players flocking there to get their new equipment, and many people counting down the days until we see all that Canada soccer gear coming in, which will be arriving by the truckload very, very soon. Of course, they've got a great bike selection as well for all members of the family, and they still do need some mechanics and people to work on bikes. If you have someone looking for a job that loves bikes, send them over to Royal Sports as well. 750 Pembina Highway, and you can hit them up on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for more information on both jobs and the latest merchandise drops and deals. All right, let's get to it. And this is special. This is a special guest star appearance right now because we have Mike McIntyre. And I do believe with the newest member of the McIntyre family, is that Piper, Mike?
Actually, Huss, this is Bodie. This is the Piper's in her crate right now, just a few feet away from me, because we just had World War III going on here between Piper and Bodie in the living room. A little Wrestlemania Day 3 action between the two of them. So Bodie is quite tuckered out. He's 7, and Piper has got the energy of the 1-year-old. She's 1, so she's a pup. And they had a good tussle, and now they're kind of in their respective corners. And Bodie's going to join me here to talk a little Jets today.
Perfect. Hey, you know what? Let's start on a positive. You mentioned Wrestlemania. Did you catch it at all? How did you enjoy it?
I watched all of it, both nights, and I don't know what my expectations were going in, but whatever they were, it blew them away. It actually was. It was really good. Like there were a lot of really nice moments, and for those of us, I'm 47, so I don't watch wrestling the way I used to, and I like some of the new stuff, but I also like, of course, some nostalgia. I just thought there was a great mix, right? I mean, The Undertaker, his entrance was pretty dynamic both nights, the Hall of Fame coming out, and of course, Stone Cold. And we were in for a treat in night 1, and then we kind of get an even better, I thought, that night 2 with him although that was the worst stunner in the history of stunners that Vince McMahon took last night, but that almost made it more enjoyable just because of how comical it was. And my goodness, I didn't know what to think of the Sami Zayn match, but that blew me away. Like I was laughing out loud at some of the sort of prop comedy that was going on when the giant hand came out and obliterated Sami Zayn, and then the huge mousetrap at the end. That was well thought out. I really enjoyed it. Actually, it was a good 2 nights.
People that are not adversed with the fine art of sports entertainment are wondering what the heck we're talking about. Right. I'm sure you can check it out on social media. For me, and I'm going to talk with this Remis at the end of the program, the star of the show is Pat McAfee. I mean,
oh my God,
McAfee being able to do that the way that he did, showing off the athletics, and this is a guy that has single-handedly created his own brand, an incredible show, and is doing so many neat things, and you could tell he was loving each and every minute of it. But yes,
when he did that almost from a standing position, when he leapt to the top rope, I mean, that's something that there's a lot of guys that have been doing this their whole life that probably can't do that.
No way.
And I actually thought all of the celebrity involvement, like even Jake Paul was really good.
Logan Paul, his brother.
Logan Paul, and I mean, just the ultimate bad guy when he was, channeling the late great Eddie Guerrero with
awesome.
the 3 amigos and the shimmy on the top rope. Like that was tremendous. And Johnny Knoxville was, good for, and all his, Wee Man and all his cast of characters from Jackass. Like they actually did a really good job of incorporating, mainstream celebrities but not doing anything that would suggest, totally unrealistic. Like those guys actually lived up to the billing.
Well, they certainly did. Well, that was a highlight of the weekend. The game Saturday night at Canada Life Center, not so much. And, as we mentioned it before, Mike, I mean, this is nothing new. A poor start when it's head scratchingly poor when you consider the predicament that this team was going in. And maybe they'd spent enough time looking at the playoff odds and realized that just how long the odds were, but that didn't look like a desperate hockey team. And listen, I thought they got better as the game went along. But again, Dave Lowry said it afterwards. I mean, it's just not good enough for where this team is right now. And in some ways, it sort of encapsulates a lot of what we've been seeing over the last month or two.
Yeah, it sure does. And, I get that they were without their leading scorer for a third straight game, Kyle Connor. Nate Schmidt obviously on the back end, and it looked like they were, I don't want to say feeling sorry for themselves, but there was almost a sense of being resigned to their fate. And that loss against LA, the Toronto loss was a bit disheartening just because they get off to the good start and then they blow it. But I think you could almost brush that one aside if they could have followed that up with a really strong start and a really good game, and obviously 2 important points against LA, and to kind of not come out with a strong start and to ultimately not get the 2 points. To me, that it's not the final nail in the coffin, but it was a significant nail in the coffin because, they had very little room for error to begin with. Now they really have almost none. I guess they got a break last night with the Kraken beating the Stars, but, they got to almost run the table here. And yeah, they get Connor and Schmidt back. That should give them a boost, but they got a tough schedule here with, not Wednesday against Detroit, but Colorado, and then some of the games coming up. To run the table is almost unthinkable. So yeah, it continues to befuddle that this team is doing a lot of the same things over and over again. And despite kind of all the talk, and they seem to be well aware of their issues, they just seem to be powerless to kind of really do anything about them.
Well, Mike, listen, we talk about this every day on this program. And, as much as, like I said to Billeck, when it was 10 or 11%, I'm a positive guy. I'm here for holding out the possibility that teams can make it happen. But we knew what needed to happen. A significant run, right through. And you mentioned, they won those 3 games. You'd love to hold on to that lead you generated in Toronto. You had to get that one on Saturday, and you had to play like you wanted it. That needed to be, the one thing that was so disappointing sitting up there, and I'm right in the corner behind the opposition goaltender in the first period. Well, let's just say we were looking at the far end of the ice most of the time in the first period of the game because the Kings had the puck. They were the ones that were generating the shots, and there was just no sense of urgency. But I'll say this. I'm at a point where sort of at peace with the season. This team's not making the playoffs. There's a dozen games left. Now, I know the coaches and the players will say, hey, we're going to keep going hard until we're mathematically eliminated. They're pretty damn close right now.
Right.
From Dave Lowry's perspective, what should he be doing? How does he handle these final 12 games? Because it's a unique situation. He's an interim head coach that I think had a pretty good opportunity. He could turn things around, get this team to the playoffs, show some significant improvement, that maybe he'd be the guy going forward. No disrespect to Dave, but we haven't seen any of that. I don't know how they would possibly sell that to the organization. So in some ways, even without having the official title, he's some ways a dead man walking. And I'd have to say, from an organizational perspective, you'd like to use these final 12 games as much as possible to garner some positive momentum, whether that's playing the young guys, whether that is doing something what Daryl Sutter did last year, I think, was trying to establish where they're going forward. Well, that's great if you're going to be there next year, but that's not the case right now. So, from your perspective, both from a coaching standpoint and the team overall, what's at stake in these final 12 games, if anything, and what could happen that would help them the most going into the offseason?
Well, you're right on that point in that, what may be best for the organization in the big picture and in the long term is probably very much at odds with what's best for Dave Lowry personally in the short term. He's coaching at this point, not for what might be next year or to evaluate. He wants to win as many of these 12 games, obviously, as possible. And if for no other reason than to show, if it's not the Jets, another organization, that he's maybe worthy of an opportunity. And so that does sort of conflict with the big picture that, I'm sure the Jets are going to enter into very quickly here, or they would like to, and get a sense maybe of some of these young kids. Like we've talked in the past, does Mikkel Burden maybe come up and get a game or two down the stretch here if the games, don't matter in the sense that they're not competing for a playoff spot? I'd like to think guys like David Gustafsson would get another look here before the season's over. They can all go back to the Moose, and it looks like the Moose are equipped to go on a good run here. So certainly there are issues that are going to have to be addressed, and it would be interesting to be a fly on the wall of a number of people right now: Mark Chipman, Kevin Cheveldayoff, and of course Dave Lowry and his staff. I suspect there's a lot of behind the scenes talks going on about to make sure that everybody's on the same page. But it does create a really bizarre dynamic in a way. And you're right. I'm a sense of kind of a lame duck, situation for Dave Lowry. And I wrote a column late last week that ran in Saturday's paper that, as you point out, there hasn't been a change at all. In fact, it's a statistical dead heat. Prior to the game against the Kings, Maurice was averaging 1.1 points per game, and Lowry was averaging 1.1 points per game. It's the exact same team if you look at results under Lowry as it had been under Maurice. Now,
if you dig a little deeper, though, I mean, the numbers aren't really flattering to the Dave Lowry unit as opposed to Maurice at all. And maybe that has to do with the best 15 games of the season, which was the 9-3-3 start at the beginning of the year, are all under Maurice. But I mean, you want to talk about anything analytically and what they've been generating, what they've been giving up. It has not improved since the coaching change.
No, it hasn't. And, I put me in the camp, and I know Craig Button, there's a lot of debate around his comment that he kind of really laid all of it at the foot of the coaches. And you and I think last week on this program, I sort of broached it and I expanded on my thoughts a bit more in that column with the House Cats headline that made me chuckle a bit. But, I think the players, I think it's too easy just to blame this all on coaching, and it lets certain players off the hook. And I know you and Scott just talked about one of those players, and I singled him out in my column. That would be Mark Scheifele. I don't know if Scotty Bowman in his prime could necessarily get much more out of this group when they continue to almost show in ways that they're not very coachable, or they keep making mental errors or repeating the same mistakes that, short of Dave Lowry himself going out on the ice and correcting them, these are things that established pros and guys that have been around should not be doing. And I think that, could another coach, that's not Maurice or Lowry come in? Maybe. And I know everybody looks to the Calgary example, and it is a good one for sure, that the Flames basically kept the same roster and a full season now under Daryl Sutter. And we've seen him do some pretty bold things, right? He healthy scratched Sean Monahan. Now, Sean Monahan is not Mark Scheifele, but that was a decision that probably sent one hell of a message through the Flames locker room. And, so maybe that kind of coach could fly here in Winnipeg, or is what they need. Don't forget, though, Dave Lowry is a bit of a disciple of Daryl Sutter. I think Dave Lowry has some Daryl Sutter tendencies. I mean, for all the people saying the Jets need a Daryl Sutter type coach, they may kind of have one here right now in Dave Lowry, maybe Daryl Sutter light. But I also think if you're Dave Lowry, again, this was a tough position to inherit.
Absolutely.
You still had all the other staff around you. You don't have any of your own people. And, just the circumstances of how he took over, it wasn't like the guy got fired. He resigned. And I just wonder if Dave Lowry's really had a fighting chance here. And if, in a way, some of these Jets players almost look at Lowry like we as kids would have looked at the substitute teacher, in school, right? And not pay them much attention. Think back to your days when the substitute was there, it was a circus, right? All hell broke loose. Yeah. And I just wonder if he doesn't have the respect that he deserves, not because of who he is, but because of how he inherited this job. And again, some of the unfortunate tendencies that some of these players have developed.
Well, and I'm not, and I think it's part and parcel of a couple of things. And we've talked about, potentially moving a player. Mark Scheifele is always the guy that comes up first, from that core. I mean, both for a number of reasons, both for, I think, the marketability of what he would bring to another team,
right? His
contract, how much time he has left on that contract, what the team would need to do to re-up to keep him here long term. I mean, all of that. And then obviously a coach coming in with a different message. But I think those two things to me are part and parcel, Mike, because, at times we have seen this team almost naturally have a turnover of leadership. I know the guys with the letters on their jerseys are the same.
Yes.
But we've seen Pierre-Luc Dubois, we've seen Kyle Connor, we've certainly seen Nikolai Ehlers when he's been here and speaking. You want to talk about accountability? I mean, he's been one guy that has almost taken more on that many of us thought has been deserved. And it's in such stark contrast to some of the other key players that, frankly, you want to see that from. And I mean, to be honest, I think it's sort of a combination of both, but I brought this up before. And while we're talking about Mark Scheifele, as much as I think that, the Winnipeg Jets as an organization it'll be one of the biggest moves they ever make. And if they do, they've got to get it right and get someone to come back and, fulfill his role. Maybe not as much offensively, but, you have a better plus minus, if you will, not to use that stat, but, in that mix, but also allow for the Dubois and Connors and Ehlers to really be the leaders of this team and to lead the way going forward. And I guess the other part of that is when you look at Mark Scheifele and what this season that he's had, I'm not sure that there's many guys in the league that could use a change of scenery more than Mark Scheifele.
Yeah, the term addition by subtraction comes to mind in a way, and for some of the reasons that you just brought up, right? Like the potential of what else it does, what else it maybe does to the roster in terms of the pieces that you would get back, the pieces that you get back, and then what else it might do to the existing roster that's there that are either being held back or there's this glass ceiling or whatever in place, and whether that's the leadership role or ice time, things like that. I think we've seen it generically, as you say, start to happen this year, where it would have been unfathomable at the beginning of the year, Huss, if you had told me that every time the Jets start overtime, Mark Scheifele wouldn't be part of the three guys on the ice to start overtime. But we're seeing that now lately. The games last week that went to overtime, Mark Scheifele was not out there to start. Pierre-Luc Dubois was, and Kyle Connor. And, I think there's been a bit of a changing of the guard, but it's been subtle. And, I just wonder if steps happen in this offseason to make it, I guess, more of an official changing of the guard. And that's where it really feels like this team is at a bit of a crossroads right now. They're at a crossroads when it comes to their immediate future and are they a playoff team or not? And I think we're starting to now see the direction they're going there. And the likelihood is, no, they're not a playoff team. But then the bigger crossroads is the one that pertains to, next season and the seasons after that. And that's where those decisions are going to have to be made. And, as we said at the trade deadline, Kevin Cheveldayoff kind of tried to, like he was all over the road, right? He was kind of thinking of the future, but also thinking of the present. And he kind of tried to serve all the masters at once. I suspect when we go into the summer here that he's going to have to pick a more definitive lane. And I personally do not think that lane is going to be a complete rebuild. That's not realistic. I don't think the Jets can afford to do a full rebuild. They need to, move tickets and merchandise in the city, and they need to be competitive. And so I think we're getting into a retool, and it's just a question of, I guess, how many tools in the old toolbox does Kevin Cheveldayoff pull out?
Well, and to me, Mike, and I'll ask this to you. I mean, I think it was interesting seeing Nikolai Ehlers get some time in Kyle Connor's absence on that top power play unit and how different it looked. I mean, his ability to shoot the puck. And my other takeaway was, and this is in the big picture of, okay, what happens with your top six? Is Scheifele going to be here next year or not? Who the coach is coming in? All of that, to me, I think right at the top of the list, maybe in addition to, what are you doing with the blue line? Where are the spots for the young guys? What does that allow you to do up front? Is to find a spot for Nikolai Ehlers to play him as much as he is warranted and get the most out of him. And, part of me thinks that it's going to be with Dubois and Connor, and that is your clear-cut top line. But I'll tell you what, Wheelers look so good playing with those guys. And I think the best case scenario is to have two loaded lines, of which Nikolai Ehlers is a real leader in one and is played like the top line. And it's weird. I mean, even at this point in his career, I mean, we can't really say, I think at one point, this was where it really clicked with Nikolai Ehlers. And to me, that might be the number one job. And it's a combination of the coach and general manager based on personnel and how they're used to get that most. But I don't think this team takes that next step until they get the most out of Nikolai Ehlers that we're seeing the tantalizing potential of most time that he's out on the ice.
Yeah, I go back to the bubble in Edmonton there in that playoff series against Calgary, Huss. And of course, not a lot went well for the Jets. Mark Scheifele got hurt right off the hop there by Matthew Tkachuk, and Patrick Laine ended up getting banged up there. But to me, that was a bit of a coming out party for Nikolai Ehlers in that brief series. because he kind of had the reputation of disappearing, right? When the stage got big. And I thought he carried that over into a real nice season last year, albeit it's hard to judge last season by any real metrics because, they only played 6 different opponents and all the factors that we've discussed. But you're right. I think in some ways, Nikolai Ehlers, I've said it before and I'll say it again. To me, there's 4 forwards that you build this team absolutely 100% around. Nikolai Ehlers is one, Kyle Connor is one, Pierre-Luc Dubois is one, and a guy that's been injured right now for a bit here, but that's Cole Perfetti. To me, Dubois, Perfetti, Connor, Ehlers, that is your future core 4 when it comes to forwards. And when you're evaluating what you want this team to look like, how you want it to play, who's playing with who, to me, if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff and Larry Simmons and Mark Chipman and all those guys, I've got those 4 names on a board somewhere. And my whole plan is, how do I build around these 4 guys? What do we need, to get the combinations right and the right mix and the right chemistry? And I think most teams, heck, probably every NHL team would take those 4 guys in a heartbeat as a real solid kind of foundation for the future.
Yeah, no doubt about that. As far as these final 12 games go, and maybe you can speak to practice today, because I know we saw, Heinola and Stanley both working in with the group. I thought Villiers had a real strong game on Saturday.
Good.
He impacted on the power play. I know it wasn't technically a power play goal. But I mean, considering where the situation is in, I've got a lot of time for both of those guys to be playing, to be perfectly honest with you, and maybe even a guy or two from the Moose for a game or two, like a Kovacevic or a Sandberg that we've seen before. How do you see that playing out? And did you garner anything from today's practice as to how things might look on Wednesday?
Yeah, Villy took the initial rushes with Nate Schmidt on that third pairing, and then Logan Stanley subbed in. If I just had to guess based on how Dave Lowry ran his lines today, it would seem to me that Villy is probably a notch ahead. And, Dave Lowry told us, a week ago, that Logan Stanley was a bit banged up and battling something. And whether that's really the case or not, I think everybody's banged up to a degree at this time of year.
Yeah, he wasn't banged up enough not to work for 45 minutes after practice with the assistant coaches. So take that for what it's worth.
Or to the point when Nate Schmidt got COVID that they had to call someone up from the Moose. They were comfortable putting Logan Stanley in. I think that was more of a cover than anything.
Yeah.
Again, he probably does have some minor aches and pains right now. But, Dave Lowry, I asked him about, has Villy done enough to stay in the lineup? And his answer today, kind of alluded to, well, we'll look at who our opponent is. And I do wonder if that's how he works this down the stretch. If they're playing a bigger, heavier opponent, maybe Logan Stanley gets in. If they're playing a more finesse skilled team, maybe it's Ville Heinola. If he thinks there's going to be a lot of special team, maybe a lot of penalty killing, then it's Stanley. So I could see more of a platoon here down the stretch. And you're right. The Jets, I think they'd be wise to get a look at some other guys. The problem is they only have those 4 recalls under non-emergency conditions, and they've now used one of them in Morgan Barron. So it's not like they can just kind of have the shuttle going back and forth here for these last 12 games, but they have to use them judiciously. That being said, I think we will see some experimenting down the stretch. But again, it goes back to Dave Lowry, and he probably is going to, coach his tail off right to the bitter end, even if his team is long eliminated, because in a way he's got to look out for himself, right? And who would blame him? I'm sure he'll do what he's asked and be a good team player and company guy. But at the same time, he's got to think about his future, and it does create an interesting dynamic.
Well, speaking of futures, I don't think there's playoffs in the future, but I know there's a few people with the Jets over 92.5 point prop for the season that would love to see the team find a way to go 8-3-1 in the final 12 games and get to that magic 93 point number. Right. Even though it might not be enough to make it into the playoffs. Mike, before we go, I did want to ask you about something non-Jet related. What did you think about the Arizona Ducks brouhaha that involved Troy Terry getting his face caved in by one goal scorer, Jay Beagle,
right.
And Tyson Nash alluding to the fact that if you want to skill it up, you better be prepared to get punched in the face.
So I almost look at this as two separate issues, and I asked Kyle Connor today and Nate Schmidt actually about it, and they gave interesting answers as well. And I think they see it as two things. I don't think Jay Beagle's actions were necessarily what Tyson Nash thought they were. Like, I don't think Jay Beagle was out there to punch someone in the face for skilling it up too much. I think he saw, he thought there was a poke at his goalie and he's pissed off. They're getting, it's 5-0. Like the Trevor Zegras goal, the skilling it up, that was way earlier in the game, right? Like that, it's not like that just happened and he felt at 5-0 that Zegras is just showing off at that point. So I don't feel that Jay Beagle was reacting the way Tyson Nash almost implied he was, as if to say, well, he's out there to break faces because guys are too skilled. So look, I mean, it was stupid what Beagle did, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say it was, a bit of an old school, stupid hockey play. As for Tyson Nash's comments, so to me, I mean, those were just so tone deaf and unfortunately speak to that hockey culture, that toxic culture that we often hear about and that a lot of people like to tell us doesn't exist anymore or is gone the way of the dodo bird. The reality is there are still a lot of people that think like Tyson Nash, and the idea that you should have to, risk injury, getting your face caved in because you score a really pretty goal. Or, I saw Tyson Nash kind of double down on it and he said, well, maybe I worded it wrong. He said, maybe not skill it up. I should have said, show them up or something. And then he's something about, he didn't like that they were smiling after a goal. Like, I guess it's just like, grow up. I mean, if you don't like what the other team's doing to you, play better, be better. And unfortunately that kind of caveman mentality, I think still permeates in sport and more in hockey, kind of more than anything. And the sooner that kind of attitude goes away, the better, in my opinion.
Cheers to you, Mike. Thanks for doing this. Well, month left in the season, many more interesting conversations, and then things will really get interesting once we get into the off season. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Take care.
Great stuff with Mike McIntyre. We'll continue talking Jets all week. Of course, game coming up on Wednesday night against the Detroit Red Wings, but it is Masters Week. And cannot wait for our next guest to come in and get ready for the big tournament at Augusta. Just before we do that, quick Princess Auto curling report. More news and more breakups on the weekend. Jason Gunlickson's team going their separate ways, and Chelsea Carey, Winnipeg native, was curling out of Regina. She's going her separate ways with her clubs as well. Of course, Mike McEwen's team also disbanding. We'll have more on where all these top players are going coming up. Of course, Princess Auto Players Cup coming up, though. All these teams still playing in the big championship at the end of the tour. Princess Auto, proud sponsor of the tour, and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Visit them at one of 2 Winnipeg locations, or you can shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Big night tonight for those of you folks that love WrestleMania. You got the big Raw tonight, and of course it is the championship game in the Final Four. Great spot to go watch the game, of course, is your local Boston Pizza. But if you're staying home, check out their game day deals and everything you can get delivered online at bostonpizza.com, and pop into the City Place BP before and after the game coming up on Wednesday night. And of course, a big shout out to our friends at the Nick and Nicky DQ group. Loving those new stack burgers at Nick and Nicky's. 4 locations, DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. Hit them up on DQ Manitoba on Instagram if you want a custom order a cake to get ready for the weekend. And if you don't want to go out, good news for you folks in Winnipeg, Polo Park, St. Anne's, and Northgate, all available on all of the delivery apps. You can get your DQ from Nick and Nicky delivered without getting out of the house. All right, let's get ready. We've talked a lot of hockey so far today. Let's get ready for for the main event of this week. And that, of course, is Augusta. And who better to do it with than our guy from SportsGrid TV, Mr. Dubsy himself. Dubs, what's up, man? It's great to have you back on the program.
Hustler, how are you, brother? I mean, this is the pinnacle in all of sports. March Madness is okay if you like children throwing up bricks, missing buckets, but this is athletes at the pinnacle of their craft. Augusta National, what a place for the theatrics we have shape up this week. We already had one of the most loaded fields coming into a major. Now you throw in the big cat, the resurgence of Tiger Woods. Oh, I'm licking my lips, mate. This is as good as it gets for me.
Oh, dude, you just mentioned Tiger. I honestly thought that when he had that car accident, I mean, the only time we'd ever see him is maybe teeing it up with Charlie in those fun father-son events that he was in right now. Yeah. And I was very nervous. I mean, I knew we saw the plane. What? He's going to Augusta. What's going on here? You don't want to get your hopes up, but my hopes are officially up. I mean, at this point, Dubs, with not hearing anything to the contrary, if he doesn't tee it up on Thursday, I'll be both surprised and very disappointed. What are you hearing about Big Cat?
Mate, he's playing. The only decision he needs to make is what shirt he's wearing Thursday, and the swing looks good. The speed's back there with the driver for me. And look, we saw him at the PNC father-son. We saw him pop up at the Genesis Riviera Invitational. I think it was a matter of just seeing how the media are going to respond to him. Are they going to ask the hard-hitting questions? I think the golf game is sneakily in a very good spot. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't know anything else but golf. He's wired differently. You don't think for the last 12 months during rehab, he's out the back of one of his 6 golf holes working on the short game, and that's where the confidence comes from. So I think from what I'm seeing, he's going to peg it up, and by God, I think he's going to be a shot here of making the weekend. I don't think he can win it. I think what we've seen from the last couple of years since Tiger's been gone is a plethora of these young guys, so talented, not afraid to win on the biggest stage. They've taken it to a new level. Guys like Cantlay, Scotty Scheffler, John Rahms. So for Tiger, he's going to have to find his best stuff and then some. But hey, what a tournament. Course is looking fantastic. Tiger's out there on the practice field. I think he's meant to drop a press conference pretty shortly here, and I think we can get the big thumbs up.
Well, all saying that, though, if he does get to the weekend and he's somehow in contention, there's something about Eldrick in a red shirt on Sunday afternoon at Augusta National that no one has had an answer for so far.
Yeah, it's absolutely filthy. The only thing I'm concerned about is if he gets the late tee time Thursday, early Friday start, that's going to be very taxing on him. And we haven't seen him play, competitive reps till it was back here in 2020. So again, that's going to be a different beast. But with so much adrenaline, so much attention, I think he can feed off that, harness it in the right way. And for all ththese young guys, all these gunslingers who think they're all this and that in the world of golf, it ain't nothing like going up against it with Tiger Woods on a Sunday at Augusta National. I think he's still got that scare factor, not what it used to be, but geez, if he can find his way into the tournament, anything can happen. I think they've still got him listed at 55-1, but I've seen stranger things, that's for sure. He's got the golf IQ, he's got the course history. This week at the Masters, it counts for a lot more. That's what he's going to lean on.
Hey, we like to dabble and throw a few sprinkles down. We'll get to the book in a minute, but I don't know what number we could have got last summer when Phil Mickelson was winning the PGA Championship, that we'd be here in April and Tiger would be in the field and Phil wouldn't be. I mean, what's up with Phil? I mean, why do you think he's not here right now? And I mean, obviously there's more to it with everything that came out of the Saudi fiasco.
Yeah, and look, the thing with the PGA Tour is they're very secretive. They're very old school. I wouldn't be surprised if Mickelson's copped a suspension we're just never going to hear about. So I think that's why he's not in attendance. But, I've heard some great stories about Mickelson at Augusta in the years prior. We turn it back to when he was a young fella. He showed up there for a practice round. He's like, okay, anyone looking for a money match here? Like, no, Mr. Mickelson, we don't gamble here on the grounds of Augusta National. He kept it up. Anyway, found 2 members. I think they're playing off 12 and 13 handicaps. He went out there. They waxed him for about $100K. He comes in the clubhouse after. He's like, I'm not paying you. You guys are sandbags. Those handicaps aren't legit. He storms off. The chairman of the club comes after him. He's like, Mr. Mickelson, just a quick reminder here. The Masters, it's still invitational only. He paid up. The following year, he returned, got the breakthrough win, and took home the green jacket. So for Mickelson, I think it's a question of, has he been suspended? But with the Live Saudi Golf League, all that fiasco, I mean, the timing, it's a little suspect. Tiger pledges his allegiance to the PGA Tour. He makes a comeback, and they've promised him full immunity. No one's going to ask the hard-hitting questions, but the big cat is back, and that's what we want to see. For poor Lefty, I mean, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. I just shake my head at Phil Mickelson. It's a bit of a sad affair right now.
No, it really is. I mean, I'm not sure his marketability and popularity, which always were sky high, were ever higher than they were not even a year ago, and yet here we are. But listen, we're going to be talking a lot about Tiger. Probably won't be a lot of talk about Phil on the weekend, but it's not just about those old veterans. You mentioned how great the sport is right now. Let's take a look at the odds board over at Coolbet. We'll go through all the odds later on, but John Rahm right now looks to be the odds-on favorite at 12-1. And then you got Justin Thomas at 14. And very interesting, your guy, Cam Smith, 17-1 after that big win earlier this season at the Players. And Scotty Scheffler, the new #1 player on the world, who has been better than everyone. What do you make about those guys at the top of the odds board? And who's the favorite in your mind, Dubs?
Look, I'm interested to see how Scotty Scheffler performs as your new world #1. I think that's a lot of pressure. It's a golf course that suits him, but I don't think he has a big week. That's a lot of pressure to take on, especially into this one. Look, you need a heavy set of shoulders to lift that green jacket. And who has the broadest of them all? Big John Rahm, Big Diesel, the Spanish Bull. I love his chances here. It's all about course history for me. His last 4 starts finished inside the top 10, but he's only got 6 wins to his name on the PGA Tour, so he has to start chalking a couple of W's up, but I think this is one for him. And then, look, Justin Thomas, all the game in the world. If you're looking at the Masters and you're looking for a key stat, strokes gain on approach, the good iron players always have the advantage here. Justin Thomas, he's got that in spades. He's got the best hands in the business. He's been playing a little angry of late. He hasn't won since the Players' Championship. So we never see a player peaking until they peak. But for me, JT is trending in the right direction, made for the biggest stage of them all. So I see him being a factor late on Sunday for this one.
It is funny seeing a guy like DJ with like a 19-1 number hung out for him. It is. I mean, we're not used to that, but it speaks to the competition of so much. But let me throw another number out to you that stands out to me. Colin Morikawa, 22-1. I know you're hot on Morikawa. And listen, all he's done is win everywhere. Wins the Open Championship, wins the PGA. He's done it all. He hasn't done the Masters yet, but it would seem like that is sort of the next progression. I mean, listen on your thoughts on Morikawa, because he's a guy that I like and I think we're going to be talking about on Sunday.
Mate, I feel like running up Magnolia Lane and just yelling out, where is the respect? Where's the respect for my boy, the California kid, the smiling assassin? Do I need to remind these guys, 2 from 8 starts at the majors, 25 years of age, looking to go back-to-back. I haven't seen anyone since the young Tiger Woods so resilient late on a Sunday. This guy, when the going gets tough, he finds a couple of extra gears and he does it with a smile on his face. I love his golf game. When we talk about iron play, yes, JT's one of the best in the world. Colin Morikawa, he is the best in the world. His putting's good on firm and fast greens, so I like him for this one. But again, this is a guy who licks his lips. The harder the task, he is the man for the job. Some of these guys are going to get in the mix over the weekend, Hustler, and they're going to be shopping like a trolley from Trader Joe's. They're not going to know what to do with themselves. Not Colin Morikawa. He's got that laser focus, and that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, I mean, I will certainly have a piece of Morikawa when we tee off on Thursday. There's another group of players right in that mix. Brooks at 20, Rory at 22, which again is a big number, but I mean, it's been a while since Rory actually won a major. And then another one of the young stars of the game in Victor Hovland. I mean, Brooks, Rory, Vic, who do you think has the best weekend? And do you like any of those guys to really be in the mix for the jacket?
Look, I don't know about Brooksy. He's just sort of lacking that form coming into this one. For me, Victor Hovland, if it plays soft and he can play target golf like it did last year for Hideki Matsuyama, I like his chances more, but I think the short game could be a bit spotty, and you need that this week at Augusta. For Rory McIlroy, I'm a little disappointed. I mean, this guy had all the promise in the world, hasn't won a major since back in 2014. He's chasing the career Grand Slam, but I think he's uncomfortable being the main man. When he gets back to playing golf and not golf swing, like we saw in the last day at the Ryder Cup, he's fantastic. But for me, he's too much up top between the ears. If you put Jordan Spieth in Rory McIlroy's body, that is the #1 golfer in the world, and that is a fact, but I don't like him for this one.
Cantlay and Schauffele are at 25-1. Both of them have won big tournaments. Both of them, when they are dialed in, are right there with the best in the game. Do you think either of those guys contend?
I'd go with Xander. You know, he was right here last year with Hideki Matsuyama. He was there in 2019 with Tiger Woods. For Cantlay, not a good record at the majors. But, I mean, it's only a matter of time. He's got no weakness in his golf game. But I like Xander Schauffele. Another good guy, another smiling assassin. I think he could sneak up on the radar in a week that no one's talking about him.
Dubs Anderson's with us, getting ready for tee-off at Augusta National, the Masters tournament, including Tiger Woods, we expect. Going to be amazing. further down the board, any bombs that you're throwing on the card, guys that you think have some good value that you should roster?
Yeah, I like Sung J M. He's played here twice before. He had a runner up there in 2020, 65-1. You'll find him thereabouts. A great driver of the golf ball who's addressed his short game. He's not afraid of anybody, but still a massive number there at 65-1. And don't sleep on the Canadian trio headlined by Mr. Corey Connors. I mean, for me, he is a similar prototype to Louis Oosthuizen, all about ball striking. He comes in here with great form. He's really found something on the PGA Tour. He made a run there, at Austin, the match play. His last 2 starts here finished inside the top 10. I love Corey Connors' golf game. For him, he has to putt well, but again, these greens are so fast. They'll be running, quicker than some of these big boys for the pimento cheese sandwiches. I think that helps his chances. So don't sleep on Corey Connors.
Hey, I pretty much, just being a card-carrying member of Team Tony, I will always back Tony Finau. It hasn't been a great season so far. What do you make of his game and how he is, his form coming into this event?
Look, for Tony Finau, he goes in like 8 event cycles. It's either really good contending every week or he's pathetic. And guess what? He found something this week at the Valero Texas Open. Tony Finau is back on a course he's got great course history with. He's a good driver of the golf ball. He's a gamer. He got that breakthrough win at the end of last year there in New York. So I like his chances. And again, a guy, once he finds it, it's all confidence. Can he keep it running hot from last week? I think he can. When it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's real bad. But I think I like what I'm seeing.
I'll tell you what, I'm sniffing a 60-1 on Tony and a 70 on your guy, Sung JM. So we're going to have to get on those. Hey, Dubs, before we go, I do want to ask you, listen, I love the match play tournament, especially from a betting perspective. Maybe my favorite event of the year. You've got all the head-to-head matchups. Yeah. Really, really fun. But it is interesting to see. I mean, that's a big event. It's a WGC event. There's a lot of FedEx Cup points on the line, a lot of world ranking points. But where it comes in between the players and the Masters, we've seen players like Rory McIlroy and Cam Smith not even play in the event. You've been involved in the game for a long time. What are the challenges that that the schedule, I guess, poses to the players getting ready for Augusta with the strange nature of the way the PGA Tour calendar is set up right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a Mickey Mouse format, so it's not for everyone, especially 2 weeks out from the majors for all the big guys. But it's a matter of the PGA Tour just taking on way too much. There's too many events on the schedule, so it's a matter of trying to fit them all in. So I don't blame Cammy Smith, coming off that win there at the Players' Championship, sitting that one out. I don't blame Roy McIlroy skipping that either. But, I mean, what a dud move. Going to Valero, Texas Open, couldn't even make the cut there. Again, not big on Roy McIlroy, but look, this is as good as it gets. A bunch of young guys coming in here with a wealth of form and talent. For me, this could be a major for the ages. I think what we saw last year doesn't get enough credit. Tiger Woods is sort of overshadowing that this week. But what Hideki Matsuyama did last year, groundbreaking for the golf craze nation of Japan, and I hope we see it again this week. If you're looking for a fade, I'm not big on the big bad Bryson DeChambeau. I don't know what's going on there. He's got the hand injury, a neck injury. He's telling us about a long drive contest coming up, but he is all over the ballpark. And this is, of course, you need a bit of shot making. It's more about art. I think he needs to be on the flat bombing gouge of the PGA Tour, but this is not a week for big bad Bryson.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, although I never would have thought in a million years we've seen a 45 hung next to his name either. So
it's decent.
There's a reason for that, and it's the way that he's played so far this year and the injuries that he's discussed. Last one for you, Dubs. There's something special about the Masters and Augusta. We always talk about guys that have played well there before, course history, and former green jacket winners. Are there any former Masters champions that we haven't been talking about week to week on the PGA Tour that maybe we should start thinking about because of it's Augusta, it's the Masters, and these guys have done it before?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Spieth looks to have found something yesterday. I don't like his golf game. He's chasing distance. He's picked up 9 yards, but he's now fallen outside the top 100 in strokes gained around the greens and putting. But, I mean, he is the ultimate gamer, ultimate competitor. Can he find the right stuff and get in the mix here? I mean, if it plays tough, I like a guy like Jordan Spieth, great course history, a previous winner here, but don't sleep on Patrick Reed. It's been a bit of a mixed bag of results, but again, if it plays tough, turns into an arm wrestle, Paddy Reed is the man for the job. He can lean on that short game. He loves hitting the draw. It suits his ball shape. Keep an eye out for those two.
Dubs, this has been so much fun having you back in the program. Thanks so much for doing it. Where can people find more of your content this week? What do you have planned for Masters Week?
Mate, a lot of content coming up. You can follow me on Twitter, Mr. Dubsy, same across all social media, but there's got to be, a forewarning there. It's absolute nonsense mixed in with a bit of golf betting, a bit of PGA Tour coverage, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Yes, I let the truth get in the way sometimes of a very good story, but this is it for me. Masters Week. Oh, stop it. It's getting me all wound up.
Are you going to be jumping on with our good pal, Mr. Gabriel Morency, at some point this week?
Of course, with the mayor Morency. Wouldn't have it any other way. Talk a bit of shop. And look, this is going to be a great one in the live betting as well, playing out for 4 days. How good is sports right now? March Madness, the World Cup. Talk about Team Canada. Maybe I should change my passport. We the North, baby.
Hey, we're coming.
Come on. Dubs, GSP, it's all up there.
Dubs, you ride with us come November in Qatar. A lot of excitement about that. And in the meantime, I'm a ride with you at Augusta with some of these picks this weekend. Thanks so much. Make sure to say hi to Gabe for us. I think we're both going to be doing our shows out in Vegas later on this month at the same time. So looking forward to
Don't tempt me with a good time. Don't tempt me with a good time.
Hey, there'll be a seat for you, my friend, if you make it out there. Thanks so much. Enjoy the Masters.
Thanks, mate. Talk soon.
Oh, man, Dubsy's the best. Yes, at Mr. Dubsy on Twitter, Insta, and the rest of the infos. And obviously, if you just check our show tweet today, Dubs' Twitter handle in there. Make sure to give him a follow. What a great guy. Lots of fun. And hey, of course, our golf reports all year long are brought to you by our friends at Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club. We still got a few weeks away before the tarps are off and the course is open. But man, it's going to be a great season. We've seen the growth of golf, everywhere over the course of the past 2 years. But man, it's been an amazing run over at Breezy Bend with the beautiful course improvements, the improvements they've done to the clubhouse, the patio as well. They are pretty much full for the year, but if you're thinking about an incredible golf home for you and your family, give Corey Johnson a call, talk to them about what is available, potentially getting on that waiting list. And certainly if you're looking at hosting an event, tournament, wedding, Breezy Bend as well, great place to be. You can hit them up online at breezybend.ca. Wow, our friends at Not Autocorp, and I put this out, it was interesting. They opened up the Winnipeg Car Lab there at the Not compound. Great social media stuff coming out on, what to look for, things that will affect quotes and pricing on that. And they're also about to do another one for that Tesla experience that we've been talking about. If you're thinking about going electric, you'll have the opportunity to drive a Tesla, charge a Tesla, and learn everything about it that is different from traditional cars to electric vehicles. That program's going on right now. You can find out more at not.ca or follow them on Twitter at Not Autocorp. Check out it all or pop down and see them at Not at Waverly and McGillivray. And of course, regardless of what sort of vehicle you're looking for, why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Not team? And the weekend's over. May have to straighten it out for a few days, but nothing makes the weekend better than an ice cold little brown jug. Did manage to get a couple 1919s down the hatch on the weekend. And wherever you are in the city, you can find 1919 at most fine bars and restaurants. Of course, the best place to get it, though, is down at the tap room on William Avenue at Little Brown Jug HQ. Pop down, meet some friends for a couple beers. Try all of the wonderful Little Brown Jug offerings. You can pick up to-go beers there as well, as including merchandise. But Little Brown Jug also delivers on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So don't even need to leave the house. Head over to littlebrownjug.ca. Get your order, and the Little Brown Jug folks will deliver it to you as well. All right, let's get Michael Remis back in here because we do have a few more things to get to. But I'll tell you what, Reem, I know, talking about the Jets right now, a little disappointing with, coming out of the weekend and where the team is. We talked a lot about will they be playing meaningful games at the trade deadline? Well, they were. Not too sure how meaningful these games are going to be going forward in April, but that conversation with Dubs has me ready to go. Cranking out some lineups, making a few wagers, and getting ready for the most special golf tournament every year, and one that really transcends the sport, and that is the Masters coming up on Thursday.
Yeah, I agree. It is a very wild week in sports, as you said. NCAA tournament final today. We had our bracket at ESPN. Connor Hellebuyck bobblehead night Wednesday, the Masters, and MLB opening day is finally here as well. So this is that. I remember being in school this week. It was always like exams. You had to study for exams. never got any studying done with the start of baseball and the Masters. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore. It's definitely one of those times you need multiple TVs.
Oh, hey, hockey card talk in the chat. I've never played Breezy. Maybe one day. What up, hockey card talk? Love the name. We will do some hockey card talk at some point. I think Dusty was doing like a WWE break or something on the weekend. He's breaking everything. He went into Walmart when he was out in visiting his parents in Cranbrook, and the Walmart was stocked, and I think he dropped like 2600 on NFL boxes. He bought 47 boxes, and he's doing one massive break with all of those boxes. So anyways, that's Nielsen at 1260 at Nielsen 1260 TSN if you want to get in on some of those. And it's your boy Bruce. What up, Bruce? Great line. Jets need some dubs. The guy's energy is infectious. I don't know. I mean, I always say this about the Aussies, Reem. I mean, I could hear a guy like Dubs just commentate somebody crossing the street, and I would be engaged in it, because it's something about the accent, but certainly the energy that he brought to the show was a very, very fun conversation. It's made me even more excited for the Masters, including Tiger Woods back at Augusta.
I also like his brick background. So sorry, podcast listeners, you have to tune in to see beautiful stream.
Great background.
That guy's a pro streamer. As far as Dusty goes, I did see he posted a picture of a shopping cart full of boxes from a Walmart.
That's it.
I wonder if I thought that was illegal. I thought they had a limit on this stuff, but apparently not. Dusty's going hard at Walmart.
He's going hard. So yes, if you want to get in for the super NFL break, you can find out what Nielsen's got on for all you card people out there. Hey, speaking of the Final Four, listen, I haven't watched very much of it. My picks suck. Most of my teams were out like on the first or second weekend. But it was kind of neat to see Duke and NC go up against each other. They played almost 300 times, but had never met in the tournament. And in what ended up being, well, allegedly, Coach K's final game, the nemesis North Carolina Tar Heels eliminate Duke and end the Coach K reign down the street in North Carolina.
Yeah, I saw a lot of tweets. Incredible career for him, and I guess fitting. You know, I always pick Duke to lose early. They're like the easy heel team.
Yeah,
the hates like. So I picked against them, but again, my bracket is toasted. We have some people that are actually alive in our pool. We haven't really done any.
That's incredible, actually. Yeah, can you
I'll pull it up here, right? So I was out basically like the first weekend. I had Auburn to win. But Richard B, he's got Kansas, so he's gonna win if Kansas wins. Seems like he's doing pretty well. This is Richard B. I don't know if he's in here or what. And we have a couple other people who are into Kansas.
Does anyone have North Carolina?
That would be any North Carolina. No.
So I think this is Richard's to lose.
Wow, no one picked North Carolina.
How close is he to the first place team?
Oh yeah, he's 20 points away. This is what I've learned about all these pools. All you need to do is pick the winner. The rest of it doesn't really matter. So as long as you pick the winner, you're good. Maybe you hope that a lot of other people don't. So,
but in the championship game, like if Kansas loses,
if they lose,
will he get 0 points? And then
that's true. Yeah, he would probably lose.
So who's in first right now? Joker?
Slobo.
So Slobo, you are the biggest North Carolina fan tonight, and Richard has Kansas, and I think it's going to be one of those two guys that wins the tournament.
Yeah, it's one of those two guys who wins our pool. So Richard B or Slobo want to reach out. We can hook them up with something.
We'll definitely have a prize for whoever ends up winning it. Now, Remis, just check yours. How many points do you have?
Oh my man, mine.
What's your total?
Okay, so the winner. The person first is 810. I have 440. I'm in the 27th percentile.
I'm even worse than you. I am.
Oh, really?
I have 350, and I'm in the 9th percentile.
That's really bad.
It's so bad, and I don't think I had a team active since the second weekend. Like I might have not even had any teams in the 8s.
Yeah, I had Houston going kind of far, which kind of salvaged my bracket. That's for sure.
Well, that wasn't anyways, I didn't expect much. it's always fun doing the bracket, but when you have no clue, although I think a lot of people have no clue, and I think even the winners might have no clue either, but especially in a March Madness pool amongst Canadians that probably never, ever watch it. Although I will say this, the coverage this year on TSN, it's always been awesome for the men's tournament. There's been so many of the women's games on as well, and South Carolina winning that women's game over hometown hero Paige Becker's coming back to Minnesota playing for UConn, and UConn has been the powerhouse. Heck of a game. And listen, I'll give a shout out to Kate Burness and the ladies that have been doing the coverage for that. I know there's been a lot of talk about, giving equal representation and showing some of these women's sports. I haven't seen what the ratings or anything like that have been. But I'll tell you what, it is great to see those athletes be able to do it. And, what's better than one March Madness tournament? 2 March Madness tournaments. So it worked out well. They had the championship game last night for the women. And tonight it's the granddaddy between Kansas and North Carolina, 2 perennial powerhouses.
Yeah, I'll tune in. I actually have a fantasy baseball draft tonight. So I'll try to have it on and in the background while I'm doing my auction. I'm looking forward to that.
This is an auction. Is it week to week sort of thing, or
it's way too hardcore. I made these rules like 10 years ago before I was married and had a kid.
Daily?
It's daily lineup changes, daily transactions, auction, and I've read the least. I'm usually up to date on fantasy baseball, like who the players are and stuff. I haven't done anything. This is the least I've ever done in 20 years. So
when you're just grabbing your list that you're obviously going off of because you've done no preparation whatsoever, give me the top 5 or the top 10 guys based on expected auction values for the 2022 Major League season.
I'll give you the hitter. Let me see. I think Trey Turner is here's Juan Soto. This is for hitters. Juan Soto, Trey Turner, Jose Ramirez, Ronald Acuna, and Bryce Harper, and then Vlad Guerrero's after that. There's pitchers here. Garrett Cole. I think pitchers are. I don't think pitchers are worth as much, so they might get bumped. But Cole, I guess Ohtani, depending how your league does him.
League rules, yep.
I'm trying to think of the other pitchers. DeGrom just got hurt, so that kind of throws a wrench. Like he would be way up there if he was still playing.
Oh, for sure.
So we will see.
So Vlad's at 6. Vlad's the one Jay's player in the top 10.
Him and Bo. I think Bo is up there too. Let me. I thought he was one of the top guys, but I could be wrong.
He'll go for a lot more in your draft because everyone's a Jays fan right now, and everyone's all horny about the start of the season and how Toronto's going to do.
There's a Jays premium in the draft, Jets premium here for hockey pools. I'm sure if you go, that's the key. You go to some hockey pool with your friends who aren't from Winnipeg. You can snag Kyle Connor late or Nikolai Ehlers, and you have a great pick.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, it's your boy Bruce beating me to it. The other thing that we need to get to, Kyle Lowry's return yesterday to Toronto to play against the Raptors for the first time as a member of the Miami Heat. It was awesome. I mean, the Raptors did an incredible job, welcoming Kyle back. I love the fact that they wore the gold jerseys, kind of, recognizing the 2019 championship that he was such a big part of. And, there's athletes, and I mean, I love the Raptors. I watch some of the games. I'll be all over the playoffs. I certainly don't follow it like I do hockey or football, but the opportunity to watch a warrior like Kyle Lowry all those years, right to the top of the mountain with that championship in 2019. I mean, he really is one of the most special athletes, not from a physical perspective, but from like the heart that he shows. And I heard O-Dog talking Friday that he thinks Lowry should get a statue. And some guys were saying, well, what do you mean? But he really is the face of this Raptors franchise, the one guy that stands out from the inception of it. And I'll tell you what, Remo, the most automatic bet ever was yesterday on Coolbet. Kyle Lowry over 14.5 points in his return to Toronto. You knew there was no way he was going to have a dud game.
Wow, yeah, and he was a great player, before they won the championship and part of the championship team. Incredible heart. Yep, seeing a lot of tweets on the weekend. The GROAT, I don't know if you were familiar with this term, greatest Raptor of all time. That's what the R is for. It took me a second to figure that one out, but I got it eventually. I got it. So, great to see him back in Toronto for one night, and getting a chance to be celebrated, as they did have to play in. Well, he went to Miami in the offseason.
Yes, indeed. Anyways, shout out to Kyle Lowry, the best to ever do it in a Raptor jersey. Mm-hmm. And hey, nice win for the Heat as well. I kind of thought the Raps might win. They were, I think, 5.5 point or 4.5 point favorites, but Miami, they got the 5-point win, led by Raptor legend Kyle Lowry. All right. Listen, we'll get to Coolbet Lines in just a second. Hey, April is here, and you know what that means, folks. The Canadian Club and Ginger Ale ready-to-drink cocktail, good to go in Manitoba liquor marts, and a special promo all month long. When you buy Canadian Club, we'll also give you a free can of the Canadian Club and Ginger Ale to try. But if you want to dive right into it, I think most of you know how good CC and Ginger is. Even better, where you don't have to mix it. Pick it up in 6-packs at your local Manitoba liquor marts. I wouldn't be surprised if it's popping into some of the better beer stores in town as well. Big thanks to Canadian Club for their support of us. Winnipeg Blue Bomber season just around the corner. And of course, our marble race coming up on Friday afternoon. All right, to the Coolbet Lines for tonight. And by the way, big shout out to Chris Abbott and our friends from Coolbet. Big day for them with Ontario going full force is into the legalization of single game wagering. A little bit different for Ontarians dealing with Coolbet than we are right now, but business as usual for all of us in Manitoba over at coolbet.com. We got 4 games tonight in the National Hockey League. The Bruins are big road favorites at -233 going into Seabus to take on Line A and the Blue Jackets. Great matchup between the Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I did see something online today that was comparing, I guess with all the Ontario books out, comparing the odds. And best odds in the business, if you want to bet the Leafs tonight, are at Coolbet +118. Most other books in and around +110. Tampa, though, on the other hand, -139 at Coolbet for that game tonight. Coyotes and Blues. Hopefully no one on the Blues scores too skillful of a goal tonight.
I was going to say, hopefully you don't skill it up.
Yeah, no skilling it up tonight. You're playing Arizona.
I got Jordan Kyrou in fantasy. Hopefully he plays, but doesn't score too nice of a goal.
-417 for the Blues. And the Calgary Flames going into LA to take on the Kings, who are back in that first game back from the road trip after beating the Jets on Saturday. Calgary -179 on the road, and the Kings +151. Hey, just while we're at it, I see the season bets are up, and you don't always get them on each and every day, but they're there. Here's interesting. The Rocket Richard Trophy, Austin Matthews -286, Reem. Leon Draisaitl is at 240. Did they not both have 50 goals right now?
Yeah, I think Draisaitl got banged up. He was shown limping, but yes, if they are even goals, then that would be.
They're afraid. Okay, they're afraid he's going to miss some time or something like that, because that doesn't make much sense if they're both tied.
That's the only thing I can think of. What about Hart Trophy? You're seeing a lot. There's a lot of the hot hockey topics this weekend. We didn't get into one of them, but the other one is the Hart Trophy debate. Has Matthews +170. McDavid +180. I'm actually shocked at this chasm here, but do they need to change? Do they need to change it from the valuable? Because no one knows what it means. It's the stupidest thing ever. CFL gets it right where they just call it most outstanding player.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. I mean, there's another. Here are the odds right now. So it's basically a dead heat between Matthews and McDavid. Matthews is +170. McDavid's +180. Shesterkin is 6-1 from the Rangers. Huberto 10-1, Johnny Gaudreau 11-1, Draisaitl 12, Ovi 15. You know what is crazy though? You go all the way down the list.
McKinnon +5,000, McKinnon +4. That's kind of weird.
I don't even see a number for Roman Josi, or am I just missing it?
I don't know. Crosby's pretty low. The one thing with this valuable player, it sucks that a guy like Nathan McKinnon gets punished because his team's too good. It's always the best. It's just the best guy on the team. Well, never mind him.
I mean, what about McDavid? I mean, a lot of people, and Dusty was pointing this out today. People say, well, with such a great season from Draisaitl, does that take away from the value, value of the other player? And I mean, there's certainly an argument to be made for that. But as Dusty said, well, doesn't Matthews play with Marner? and Marner's in the top 5 in scoring too. So it's a pretty similar situation. You know, I'll be honest, and again, I cannot believe that Roman Josi's not on this list right now, because you can certainly make an argument that Roman Josi is as valuable to his team as any other player in the National Hockey League. And while we're looking at mentioning Josi, this Norris Trophy number still is a head scratcher. Last week when we talked about it first, it was Makar minus 333 and Josi was plus 300. Josi's down to plus 250, but I think that's still great value on Josi. And to me, that's a pick 'em right now between these two clubs, those two teams. And I'll tell you what, if we're talking about recency bias, the recency bias will certainly be in the favor of Josi, depending on how he finishes, because he has been on fire for the better part of this schedule coming out of the All-Star break.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Manny Fran had a good comment in chat. Like, why isn't Marner taking away from Matthews' votes? I mean, Marner's having an awesome season. It's probably because he's not in Justin Bieber's corner at UFC. That's probably why. Matthews is taking away all the attention. And people don't like Mitch Marner's contract in Toronto. I'm sure those are the reasons.
So if you had a vote, who are you voting right now? Like if you had to put in to put it in today.
It's hard for me not to just give it to McDavid. Really, really hard. He's the best player. He's the best player. I guess there's a debate now with him and Matthews. I just think he just puts, he's just the most value. If it's most valuable to his team, I think McDavid to the Oilers, I think they're done without him. So I'm going McDavid.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think you could say the same thing about Matthews too. And again, I know we're sort of picking straws.
You really could.
50 goals with Matthews. And Matthews, I mean, we've talked a lot about Mark Scheifele getting points, but killing the team in his own end this year. Austin Matthews is light years ahead defensively of most of these other players in the conversation, and has 50 goals and could very well win the Rocket Richard. I think those guys should both definitely be finalists. And I'll tell you what, the season that Johnny Gaudreau's had, and this would be the same thing if he was doing it in somewhere like Winnipeg. It took a long time for people to start paying attention to the Calgary Flames this year. And the season Johnny's had it might get overlooked by the voters, but I guarantee you it will not be overlooked by his agent and general managers when they get to the offseason and he's got to sign a new deal.
This was crazy to me. Johnny Gaudreau plus 48 in plus minus, leading the league, which, him and Elias Lindholm, their whole line is up there, which just shows you how much they've dominated. That's pretty crazy. And I think by comparison, Mark Scheifele as well, minus 17. It shows you how good of a player Johnny Gaudreau has been this season. So I agree. He's been pretty awesome.
I don't envy the guys that have to cast the ballot this year afterwards and then defend their choice, because I mean, I don't know whether there's really a wrong answer right now, but there's certainly a number of guys that are deserving of it. Well, maybe we'll see what happens in this final month of the season and how that might change things. Again, if you do want to, Bruce, come on. If you do want to make a wager over at Coolbet, whether it's on the Masters, and by the way, I guess I sort of went through those with Dubs. But yes, the Masters is up right now. John Rahm is the favorite for the event. And Justin Thomas coming up it's Rahm 12, JT 14. And then Am Smith and Scotty Scheffler at 17-1. You can check out that entire list and think about a few of those long shots we talked about. Sungjae Im, Tony Finau, and I love Dub's suggestion of Corey Connors. They'll probably be getting a little sprinkle as well. We'll have some more Masters talk in the next couple days before they tee it up on Thursday over at Augusta. And again, use the promo code WST at coolbet.com for your first deposit if you haven't made one before, and we'll double that deposit up to $200, a 100% bonus. Big thanks to Chris. And again, congrats to the boys on everything happening in Ontario today. All right, Remo, before we go, I did want to leave this because I know there's some people that aren't as fond of the art of sports entertainment, but your thoughts on WrestleMania overall. I mean, we've got a little bit more time right now. To me, I still can't believe how awesome Pat McAfee was. I'm a big McAfee guy. With what he's done off the field, retiring as a Pro Bowl NFL player and creating, his show, his brand, everything about it. Now doing commentary for the WWE and stealing the show last night in a match at WrestleMania.
Well, I joked that I was feeling like it was 1999 on the weekend. On Friday, I watched Red Hot Chili Peppers with John Frusciante on the Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon. And then I'm watching Stone Cold Steve Austin headlining WrestleMania. And, I thought Sunday night, there was the Pat McAfee match, which was, he's awesome. Coming out with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, hunting the football, and then Stone Cold Steve Austin on Saturday and Sunday. Now, Saturday was the Kevin Owens, and he came out, and I think you weren't really sure how he was going to go. And I think early on it looked not great. This is a 57-year-old guy in the ring, but when they got to the outside of the ring and he put his head into the turnbuckle one time, I was like, oh, man, that looked pretty legit. And then he got suplexed on the concrete. I was like, oh, geez.
He grabbed his head. I'm like, oh, my God, did he take that one right in the dome?
Yeah.
Because that is somewhat dangerous.
Yeah, but then, Stone Cold went and gave him the double suplex, ride around on the ATV. It was pretty awesome. So I was shocked. I was shocked that, that he was able to do that, 57 years old. But to do it, I think, Dallas, Texas, he's from Texas Rattlesnake, in front of a packed crowd. I think it was around 80,000, not quite 100K in Jerry World. You don't turn that down. I'm sure he got paid pretty well too, but hadn't been in-ring action for quite some time. Last match was against The Rock. So, usually comes out, does a couple of stunners, but never an actual match. So it was pretty impressive. When well done. I didn't know that Kevin Owens was Canadian. And I didn't know that he was French too. I had no idea.
Maryville, Quebec. Very bilingual star. And for my money, one of the best guys on the microphone. His disses of the people of Texas, playing the heel was absolutely top drawer. Honestly, I like that stuff even more than the actual quote unquote wrestling, just the hilarious comedy that comes with insulting 75,000 people at once. But yeah, he was great. Stone Cold was awesome. The Vince fiasco was amazing. The best part of the whole thing was the way McAfee took the stunner, though, from Stone Cold. That was absolute art. Main event last night did end, I think, prematurely because I think Roman Reigns literally had his shoulders separated by Brock Lesnar in that Kimura move or whatever, and they had to end it quickly. But to me, I think Saturday actually stole the show from Sunday. And I know Waiters was just asking, Cody Rhodes back after his time with AEW, returned to the WWE, beat Seth Rollins. But overall, I'm with Mike McIntyre. It far exceeded my expectations and was a really, really fun weekend. And was nice to have something fun and enjoyable to watch coming out of that hockey game downtown on Saturday night.
Yeah, I agree with you. And well said by Waiters and Chet. Stunners and beers never gets old. Watching the style of people being on the receiving end of the stunners. You said Pat McAfee and who was the guy who took it on Saturday? The announcer. I don't know that guy. He was in the suit.
Oh, Byron Saxton.
Yeah, he took it pretty good. And so did Austin Theory as well. So, yes, 57-year-old Stone Cold Steve Austin, 76-year-old Vince McMahon. There were some other. I wanted to watch this Johnny Knoxville match. I'm a big Jackass guy. It sounds hilarious. And but who else? Cody Rhodes came out. Yeah.
One Kabilis, Logan Paul heel status was great. He and the Miz were awesome. They were going up against the Mysterios, who of course their legendary friendship with Eddie Guerrero, the late Eddie Guerrero, and Logan Paul did all of Eddie Guerrero's moves, just inciting the fans. People were going crazy at it, and they ended up winning. And hey, shout out to anyone that was with us on Friday when we were looking at the betting odds for WrestleMania, because if you followed some of those picks, you ended up doing quite well. Charlotte, remember we talked about Charlotte, Remo? Plus 450, cash that, beat Ronda Rousey. Bobby Lashley, plus 135, he won. And the plus 106 on Logan Paul and The Miz also came through as well yesterday. So, again, low limits. It is sports entertainment, but it was a lot of fun to be actually winning bets as well as watching WrestleMania.
I saw a promo for DraftKings during WrestleMania when they're like, join our pool where you can predict which move is going to be performed first in the main event. Is it going to be the F5 or the spear? I was like, oh my God, this is what they're doing? Holy, we could be in for some trouble here if you can bet on sports entertainment. before everyone leaves, now that we're talking wrestling, do want to bring it back to the one hot hockey topic of the weekend we never touched on. Keith Yandle, the Ironman streak ended.
Oh yeah, what, 989?
Healthy scratch. Didn't let him get to 1,000. People are hot. I don't know which one's more polarizing, this one or the.
They're hot. They're hot. That listen, I'm with Mike Rupp, and I don't know if you saw Mike Rupp's take on this, but they have cheapened this record both by playing Keith Yandle way past when they should be playing him in Philly for a team that's season over and needs to play some younger players. And I'm not sure whether Yandle is legit in their top 6, but the Coyotes did it too. I mean, to bring a private jet in for Phil Kessel and let him play a shift and then leave.
Yes.
Just so you could keep that going. I mean, like, you think that Doug Jarvis was was playing a shift and then leaving and getting a private jet to take him to the birth of his kid or whatever he needed to? No way. So, listen, I think that this entire record between both of these guys is, taken a little bit of the luster off of the true meaning of Ironman right now. But from Philly's perspective, they're out of it. They've got young players they want to play. They're looking ahead to next season. I mean, Yandle isn't. If Yandle had played his entire career there, then maybe. I mean, I certainly think that, Mike Babcock's biggest douche move of all time was benching Mike Modano for the last game, which would have been 1,000 for his career, and having him finish with 999. But this is a very different story right now. The Kessel thing, I mean, just to keep it going was one thing. And to be honest, there's no reason for Keith Yandle to be taking up a spot in the Flyers lineup right now. I think they kept him in for a long time to keep this thing going. But they got to think about themselves first. And hey, congratulations on 989 in a row. An incredible record.
Yeah, I agree. And here, Modano was 1499, one away from 1500.
Oh, 1500. Sorry
1500. I heard that. But yeah, I thought the Phil Kessel thing, playing one shift to keep it going, is such a farce. And Keith Yandle seems like he's been, fringe guy for a while, and they want to try other guys, and this record is holding them hostage on what they want to do. Now, it's, I mean, how much do they owe this guy? People are saying, oh, they should have, they're out of it. Let him get to 1,000. But I mean, if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And it seems like he's kind of been on the fringe for a while. And I don't know.
He was going to be benched, I believe, before in Florida, and they sort of got shamed into keeping him in the lineup. There was all this outrage for it, and then it's just sort of continued through. So, hey, Philly's got to do what they got to do, and they're on to next season. And Keith Yandle isn't part of the solution or the future there. So sitting him out for a game, I can't blame them, and I'm sure he probably feels the same way. Although he might be pissed he's not going to get to 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you'd be pissed off, but I don't know. Maybe be a better player, and then you can get it. Then you can get in there, but. I don't know. We'll have to find out what the. I'm not a hockey guy. We'll have to find out what the real hockey guys think about that.
Talk to someone who played the game. Well, Mike Rupp played the game, and he said that they were bastardizing this record, and he didn't understand. And I'm sort of with him on that take. All right, great show. We got to get these pods up, so we will end it there, folks. But we'll have more on Jets practice tomorrow. A look ahead to the game against the Red Wings on Wednesday. We'll also have more Masters content and finish up, obviously, tonight's March Madness we'll get to. I'm sure that'll be an entertaining game. And maybe something on the Blue Jays, because first pitch is 72 hours away. Cannot wait for baseball season to get going as well. Hey, big thanks to all the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen every day, including Wallace & Wallace. Great to have them on board. F Apparel, Vita Health, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend, Not AutoCorp, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club Whiskey, and of course, our friends over at Coolbet Canada. Folks, have a great night tonight. We'll see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock, right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Have a great night.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.